Councillor Bly? Councillor Kirby-Young?
Present.
Thank you. You have quorum, Mayor Stewart.
Thanks. I do see Councillor Fry on screen,
Okay, perfect.
but we can't hear you, Councillor Fry.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
I do see.
Double mute.
Great. And we can see Councillor Bly also not on screen yet, but on the line. So I'll just go ahead. Just some bit of information before we begin. Following the updated guidance issued on June 17th to do with the PHO restrictions, public may participate in council in person, by phone, or by submitting written comments to the mayor and council. However, we are encouraging virtual participation as there are capacity limits within City Hall. Speakers who are participating have 5 minutes to make their comments and should say whether or not they support or oppose the project under consideration and if they are a resident of Vancouver. Please follow along on Twitter at VanCityClerk for updates of the progress of the meeting so you don't miss your turn to speak. And you can always send items through the web form, vancouver.ca/public-hearing-comments. And the link will also be tweeted out. If you have slides, you'll have to navigate through them by saying the word next, and we'll help you through that. And finally, City of Vancouver has a longstanding commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including utmost respect for all genders. So I remind council that when we're addressing speakers and staff, we will avoid using gendered honorifics and will instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, or title. Just a reminder that this is a quasi-judicial body, meaning that we only consider the merits of the rezoning application or heritage designation. Council members can ask clarifying questions from speakers, including the applicant, or technical advice from staff, which should save debate for after the close of the speakers list. And then we can approve the application in principle, refuse the application, or refer the application to staff for further consideration. A reminder that last meeting we dealt through with items 1 through 3, and the next item is item 4, CD1 rezoning on 450 West Georgia Street and 712 to 732 Richard Street. Does anybody wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? I don't see any. I do note Councillor Dominato is here, just for the clerks to note that, and ask the clerk now to read the application summary of correspondence.
This is an application by Wing T. Leung Architects to rezone 450 West Georgia Street and 712-732 Richard Street from Downtown District DD to CD-1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 23-story commercial office building, a height of 87.2 meters, equivalent of 286 feet, and a floor space ratio, FSR, of 15.3 are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval. The following correspondence has been received since the referral to public hearing and prior to the close of the speakers list and receipt of public comments. 5 pieces of correspondence in support and 7 pieces of correspondence in opposition. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Thank you very much, clerks. Council, if anybody wishes to speak to this item, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, code 43380 hashtag, before the close of the speakers list. And the phone numbers on Twitter and the live stream. We have Lefka Vissers from the Rezoning Center. We do have speakers of this, so we'll proceed with the presentation. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me and can you see the presentation?
Yep, we can hear you and see the presentation. I will just check on the council screen, but please go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Lefka Vissers, and I'm the rezoning planner for the application at 450 West Georgia Street and 712 to 713 Richard Street. I'm joined by Carl Stanford, the development planner. The site is located on the southeast corner of Georgia Street and Richard Street and is comprised of 6 legal lots with a total site area of 2,230 square meters. The site contains a surface parking lot and 2 3-story commercial buildings that front onto Richard Street. Immediately to the south is the L'Hermitage Doug-story apartments development containing social housing, strata-titled residential, hotel, and retail. Across the lane to the east is the construction of a 24-story office tower at 400 West Georgia Street, and to the west is Telus Gardens. This application is being considered under the rezoning policy for the Central Business District and CBD Shoulder, which permits an intensification of land uses to close the gap in job space availability and to improve the economic climate while restricting residential uses in the downtown core.
Staff, I'm just going to stop you there. There is a bit of background noise. I'm not sure if it's coming from where it's coming from, but there's a background noise. So just ask folks to mute that aren't speaking to mute, please. Thank you.
Currently zoned DD Downtown District, a variety of commercial and non-residential uses are permitted. This application was received in 2019 for a 23-story office tower with a proposed height of 286 feet and an FSR of 15.3. Under the Restart Vancouver recovery phase, this project will generate approximately 1,200 on-site and off-site jobs. For sites in the area of C1 of the DODP, the basic maximum height permitted is 300 feet, which may be increased up to 450 feet subject to urban design performance and view cone restrictions. This application proposes 286 feet. A reduction of 10 feet from that is required to comply with the view protection guidelines, resulting in a maximum height of 276 feet. Under the Downtown Official Development Plan, the density permitted in Area C1 is 7.0 FSR. This application proposes 15.65, which is an increase that is consistent with the intent of the rezoning policy for the CBD and CBD Shoulder. However, as the project compromises the council-adopted view cone, staff recommend lowering the FSR to 15.3 in compliance with the view protection guidelines. Current city practice is to ensure that residential towers are spaced a minimum of 80 feet from each other for livability and privacy reasons. Office to residential tower spacing is based on a range of 60 to 80 feet, respectively, and dependent on the relationship to adjacent buildings. This application achieves the greater spacing of 80 feet. West Georgia Street is a prominent urban thoroughfare with an important ceremonial role in the city's downtown. Sidewalk improvements require 5.5-meter unencumbered setbacks from the curb to the building face on Richards and West Georgia Streets. Additional setbacks combine to create a plaza-like public realm around the base of the building, highlighted here in green. The retail frontage along Richard Street is separated from the public sidewalk by steps due to a slope and grade. Conditions align the retail front with the grade level in these areas and are included in Appendix B, along with refinements to improve the performance of the public realm. The applicant has proposed a public open space, or POPS, adjacent to the lobby of the building on the ground floor. This would be open to the public and serviced with retail units, cafes, and additional publicly accessible entrances. Richard Street is proposed to include a two-way bicycle lane, as illustrated in this rendering. The application proposed outdoor amenity space on the 8th level podium as well as the rooftop tower. 10 new trees are planned at grade, 8 new trees on the 8th floor podium, and 5 for the rooftop podium. A pre-application open house was hosted by the applicant team on November 25th of 2019. A city-hosted open house was held from June 15th to July 5th, with more than 7,000 notification postcards sent out for each event. Concerns raised were related to building height, density, and massing. Conditions in this report have reduced the height from that proposed, have amended the massing, and ensure a greater tower separation between the proposal and the neighboring L'Hermitage building. The total public benefits package for the proposed application is $11.3 million. In conclusion, this proposal meets the requirements of the rezoning policy for the Central Business District and CBD Shoulder. Staff recommend that the application be approved, subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix B of the report. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer any questions you may have.
Sorry, couldn't find my mute button there. Thank you so much for your presentation. Again, we'll just see if the applicant is here. Do we have the applicant on the line?
Yes, my name is Wing Liang.
Hi, would you like to say anything or just answer questions?
Thank you. Mayor and council, my name is Wing Liang. I'm the architect making the application. With me this evening is my colleague Eugene Lee. And thank you, Leafka, for the very clear and thorough presentation. I'd just like to reiterate that the project meets all the city's urban design guidelines and council job creation policy. We've read the staff report. We're very comfortable with the conditions and requirements, and we're confident that we'll be able to meet all the conditions and requirements. And I'd just like to stress that there's never any intention to exceed the view cone, and we are confident that we will meet all the view cone guideline requirements. I'd just like to point to one interesting design solution that we have for the popoles, where picking up on the bike lane on Richard Street, but on the lobby floor for the bike access is by a bike ramp from the front of the building to the bike facilities. And we are also making provisions for electric vehicle charging and designated electric vehicle spots. Be happy to answer any questions that council may have for us. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I'm going to go to council now. Two councilors on the queue for questions, three now. Councillor Kirby-Young to the staff or the applicant, up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. First question to staff, and I just want to clarify with respect to the height and the recommendation. Sorry, so I'm not seeing the presentation come up online yet. So you had stipulated the height needed to be lowered. Did I hear correctly to 276 feet from 286? I wonder if you can clarify the recommendations, because I see the referral report notes still in A 286 feet. So can I just get clarification on the recommendations in front of council tonight?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Kirby-Young. We have Carl Stanford, the development planner, on the line to answer this.
Good evening, councillors. Could you repeat your question, please?
Yeah, I can. I have limited
Thank
time,
you.
but with respect, I want clarification, please, on the recommendations with respect to height, noting that recommendation A still shows 286 feet, and I thought that I heard staff say it needed to drop by 10 feet, therefore to 276 feet. I'm looking for clarification on the recommendations we have before us.
Well, that height will be consistent with the rectified measured height complying with the view cone. So what you see in the report is the modified height.
So it was 296 feet prior, is that correct?
Yeah, depending on whether you're measuring like from the base plane or geodetic. So sometimes you'll have a larger figure when you're measuring from a geodetic kind of point.
Okay, that's helpful. I just wanted to be clear. I may have misheard that. And then with respect to the EV charging, thank you. Will the applicant, with the provisions they're making, will they be meeting or exceeding the EV charging requirements?
We're meeting the EV charging requirements.
Maybe to the applicant, and had you given any consideration to increasing that, given this desire to shift everybody to electric options?
There is.
Sorry, my question is, had you given consideration to exceeding the requirements and putting in additional EV charging capability?
We will meet the EV charging requirements, but I think everyone should be aware that it appears to be the coming thing for electric vehicle charging. And so we're designating spots for electric vehicle charging. We're providing the required ones, but we're looking at installing superchargers to make the charging faster. And so if you look at our design approach, the building meets all sustainability and exceeds the sustainability requirements. We have tremendous amount of opening windows, access to outdoors. So yes, that is something that we'll be very interested in looking into to increasing.
To increase the electric charging capacity
Yes.
further?
Yes,
Okay.
and see in the, sorry, if I can just also add that if you look at the floor plans, that the exit stairs are actually all located on corners where there are glazed and opening windows to exit stairs, so that it encourages the use of stairs and cross ventilations and opening.
Okay, and then one other question while I have time, if I might, to the applicant as well. I'm wondering in terms of the sort of the shift in the market, what you see the demand being. Obviously, you're moving ahead with the project, but I wonder if you can characterize what type of tenants or what you might be able to share that you think you'll be attracting, or sort of the demand with respect to what the market's going to look like moving forward post-COVID.
It's a very interesting question. In actual fact, that there has been strong interest in this building. We've actually been asked a number of times, when can we reasonably project a completion of this building? There's a very strong indication on the level of interest in this building.
Is it coming from a particular sector? I'm just looking for a little bit of color as to who it would be attracting.
Yes, it is. And
Okay.
I don't know if I can say, but there has been very strong interest, and we have been asked a number of times, when can we deliver a building that is completed?
Okay, no problem. I appreciate that you may not be able to share with respect to the tenants, but thank you for the response.
Thank you. Councillor Hardwick, up to 5 minutes.
Well, thank you. And building, I had the same question as Councillor Kirby-Young. Given that there's so much discussion about changing nature of the workplace and whether or not there's going to be continuing demand for downtown office space, I was going to ask staff what the current vacancy rate for office space was in downtown Vancouver, and for office space with work from home and shift to smaller office. Why do we need more office space based on what we're hearing? But what I'm hearing from the applicant is that there is strong interest, which is really interesting given the tenor of a lot of what we're reading these days about the shift. Just out of interest, without giving too much away to the applicant, could you elaborate? I mean, have you developed office space before? Is this your particular area of expertise? And could you give council a sense of where you think, in your experience, the office market is going?
Applicant?
We're the architects. We're not the owner nor the developer. But I guess the most recent office building that we just finished is at the corner of Broadway and Cambie, where the City of Vancouver's planning department is moving into floors 3 to 7.
Okay. Well, maybe staff can answer the question then. What is the current office vacancy rate downtown? Staff?
Councillor Hardwick, this is Lisa Fissers, rezoning planner. While I don't have the current vacancy rate for the downtown core, the city did recently complete a comprehensive study on the anticipated long-term demand for job space as part of the Employment Lands Economy Review. That work was citywide, and it determines there'll be demand for office space in the number of about 35,700 to 66,000 office jobs. This forecast was prepared and completed during COVID by a specialized consultant team in 2020. The forecast seeks to incorporate a range of potential COVID-19 impacts. The consultants also noted that while work from home technologies are now well established and offer increased flexibility for workers and employers, that a strong focus on innovation and productivity is likely to draw people back to the office over time.
Okay, well, that's definitely debatable, but thank you for repeating from that report. A technical thing, in the financing, you talked about the DCLs, the CLCs or CACs. Are these paid on enactment, or when does the city see the money on the finances? I don't know if you can throw that slide back up again, the one that had the financial breakdown.
Might
I'm
take
sure,
us a
I'm
second
sure you've
to-
got that there.
Might take us a second to get to the slide, but perhaps staff could start the answer while the clerks are pulling that up.
Thank you. We're pulling the slides back up. This is Leeka Vissers, rezoning planner. CDCs are due at enactment.
At enactment. Okay, great. I was just wondering about the timeline on that. And then finally, I was happy with the response about the view cone. So those are all my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Dominato, up to 5 minutes. Staff or applicant.
Thanks, Mayor. And my questions to the applicant. Pleased to hear that there's obviously strong interest in the office space because there have been question marks that have been raised about that post-COVID. But I am curious, in the current market and climate we're in, from an architectural standpoint, are we building office buildings with the view that potentially if one day they weren't necessary or used for office space, they could be easily converted into housing? Because in some jurisdictions that has been the reality of an oversupply of office space. Recognize that has not been Vancouver's issue, but is there any thought that goes into that from an architectural and design standpoint of enabling that flexibility if it was necessary? I know that's a pretty long view, but.
Well, generally, for residential, usually the residential grids are smaller in scale. So from the core to the window, the dimension for an office building is a longer dimension than a residential building. Can it be converted? Yes, it can be. Is it efficient? Not really as efficient, but it can be done. That is not the best way of designing a building that has to be converted. It would be better if one designs a building that is intended for residential rather than for office, if that's the direction. But it appears that our client is confident that the interest is very strong, and that's why he's instructed us to put forward this application.
That's great. I would agree with you. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Dominato. I don't see anybody else in the queue, so we're going to move on to speakers. If there are any speakers for this item, please call 1-833-353-8610, code 43380#. And we do have a number of speakers registered for this item. The first speaker is Fu Ting Chan. Fu Ting Chan.
Mayor, speaker 1 is not on the line.
Okay, thank you, clerks. Speaker number 2 is Shanin Nabi.
Speaker 2 is on the line.
Great, Shahin Nabi.
Hi. Okay,
Hi
am I being heard? Oh, hey,
Yes.
sorry. I'm a resident. I live a block away from the development. So thanks for hearing me out. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just was listening to the comments, and my concerns with the development are kind of similar to what was brought up. It's our downtown, has a very beautiful kind of a view corridor down. You can see the water, the harbor center, and we've just had the Deloitte building come up, which is very nice. And then we had the Amazon building, lots of office space there. And then you have this, and it's like a big wall that just kind of takes away from the beauty of the view there. And kind of one of our beautiful things of our city is that we can kind of have nice peekaboos of the mountains and water and stuff like that. And I'm not sure how important that is or how, if it's taken into consideration to any significant degree, but I thought it seems like there's this, and when I look at the renderings, it just seems like, takes away from the beauty and maybe perhaps is a bit dense in that area. So yeah, that's really my concern. I haven't really spoken at a public hearing before, so I thought I would thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much for your comments. You did exactly what you're supposed to do. So that's great.
Thank
Thanks.
You. Do I just put myself on mute?
No, that'll be it for you. We don't have any questions from council for you. So just want to thank you for phoning in this evening. Thank you. And we're going to move to speaker number 4 as Scylla Heim.
Speaker 4 is not on the line, Mayor.
Thank you, clerks. Speaker number 5, Bonnie Dean Stobie.
We're just confirming there's a speaker on the line, but as of now, Speaker 5 is not on the line.
Okay, let's call one more time. Speaker 5, Bonnie Dean Stobie. And don't hear anybody there, so we'll move to Speaker 8, Derek O'Keefe.
Speaker 8 is not on the line.
Okay, thank you, clerks. Number 9, Lisa McLeod.
Speaker 9's on the line.
Hear me?
Hi there,
Hello?
we can hear
Can
you.
you hear me?
Hi, we can, up to 5
good,
minutes
okay.
whenever you're ready. Yep.
Yeah, I have some questions. I just like to know what evidence the planning of this building has to show that having a school with mixed-use housing proves to be a safe space for school. And the reason I'm asking is because of a resident of Cole Harbour on West Georgia Street. Can you hear me?
I'm just gonna, yes, I can. I just wanted to let you know that that's the next item on the agenda. That's not this item. So this
Okay.
item.
So when do I call back in for that?
Have you registered as a speaker?
Yeah, today. And I thought I was registering for the right discussion.
Perhaps I'll
Am
let
I on the
clerk,
wrong one?
I'll let clerks assist you
Sort that
offline.
out. Thank you.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'm going to move to the next speaker. Clerks, we're looking for speaker number 10, Margaret Klima. Margaret Klima.
Speaker 10 is not on the line. Speaker 1
Okay.
has returned, though, Mayor.
Okay, great. So Fu Ting Chan.
Yep, that's me speaking. Can you hear me?
Hi there. Yep, up to 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Yeah, well, thanks for the opportunity for me to speak. I just actually want to really I just want to make sure I'm on the right call here. This is about the West Georgia build for the office block, correct?
This is
Yes.
the office tower.
Yeah. So I think, I'm a resident at Richard Street, just near the tower, actually just across it, at 77 Richard Street is where I live. I actually have a lot of concerns about sort of increasing density here. From what I can tell, we're increasing density from 7 to 15.3, which is a huge increase. I think it's like over 200% increase in a space that's already very crowded currently with office block. I think within my vicinity there is obviously the Terrace Garden building, and then there's the Post building, and then opposite it is where there's this block building is quite right now. I think it's called the Deloitte building. And then now what you're proposing is what the proposal is basically. I mean, if you actually come to the space, you see it's like a tiny little space. Currently, is a car park, which is between the Deloitte building and the Terrace Garden building. If you look at the street right now, actually, what happened in Richard Street is that we added a cycle lane in between, and we added the parking. So in this sort of narrow street of Richard Street, we have a pavement, a two-way bike lane, plus a parking lane, plus two supposedly driveway, but then one of which is usually there's a loading zone there, so basically one of which is usually blocked for loading. So I'm very concerned about adding more density of office in this already very, very crowded block. Where my flat is, basically I can kind of see where the construction site will be. I think it's important to note that this area has been in continuous construction for the last 3 years. This block, bounded by West Georgia, Richards, and Robson, has been constantly under construction since I have been living here, which is 2.5 years ago. My balcony is always full of dust, construction site dust from all the different buildings out there. So if I leave anything outside, just like a small box, 2 months later, it's just full of dust, right? So it's just really not healthy at all. If you just look at the amount of dust, construction dust that's caused by these by these things, and I think it's a health issue. Yep. So I have, I'm concerned about the construction. I'm concerned about the health, the noise. My daughter, I have two daughters, one of which always gets woken up in the morning because there's construction trucks that arrive 7 a.m. in the morning, and they honk or they make really loud noise. So I think that this block is already a super crowded block. I don't understand why we need any more increase in density for office space, considering that also that a lot of people are also working from home as well. So, even as the situation reverses, I don't see how this is the right place to put an extra density on office block. This is, you're turning into like window to window, literally, which is really bad. Like there's no public space around me. The closest one is the closest one is at least 6 blocks away, in a park. So there's no place for children to play. It's unsafe with the bike lane, all that stuff. It's just unsafe. Adding more density, adding more traffic, adding more flow for traffic, it just doesn't make sense to me. Yep. So overall, I think that adding a 21-story building right here, in a super crowded block where Amazon is as well, just opposite, right? I see like a lot of office worker right there already. When everyone goes back to office, this is going to be crazy. Like this block alone is going to be crazy. I also don't really understand from the plan how access to the building would be given to cars, because I don't think you can build a access from either West Georgia or I don't think I saw in the plan either West Georgia or Riches. Maybe in the back. I don't know if someone can explain that to me a little bit more because I'm very concerned about the density here, and the lack of a space. There's the lack of daylight. If you add another big block right here. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Speaker. That is your 5 minutes. I do really appreciate you calling in tonight. You don't have any questions from council, so I will just thank you for your participation this evening. And ask clerks, I'll make my first call since we've reached the end of the list. Are there any other speakers on the line who wish to speak to this? And while you're checking, 1-833-353-8610, code 43380 pound. Clerks.
No additional speakers, Mayor.
Okay, second call. Number is on the live stream and Twitter. Participant code 43380 pound, and just checking for the second call if there's any speakers.
No speakers, Mayor.
Okay, we'll go for the third time with the same information. Council, it is 6:36. We'll come back at 6:41 to see if anybody else has phoned in. And clerks, I'll just remind those who are not councillors or on council, just remind you to turn your video off. We try to keep the proceedings equal to everyone, and I do see some videos on that perhaps should be off. So if please leave your audio on, but yeah, that's great. Okay, thanks so much. 6:41. See you 5 minutes, council.
There is one speaker on the line, Mayor. We're just trying to confirm who they are.
Great, thank you so much.
Mayor's not on yet. Mayor, are you there?
I am.
The speaker is not for this item, so there are no further speakers, but so you can proceed. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, council, so we have no additional speakers. We're going to close the speakers list. And we'll also close the receipt of public comments and move on. Just ask the applicant if you have any closing comments.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I guess I would just like to reiterate that our client has a long-term view, and yes, there's a changing environment that there may be more people working from home, but at the same time, we need to adapt to consideration for a healthier environment, and that there will be less dense people working in offices requiring more space, so that the actual area of the office would be similar with less people in them. And we believe that we cannot fully replace working at home and replace the office space. So the long-term view is the office space would still be required. The building has been designed to adapt to these considerations for a healthier building, indoor air quality. You look at the drawings, you'll see a lot of operable windows, access to open space, and electric vehicle charging appears to be future. So when we made the application, it was to meet the requirement. But certainly as it evolves, you'll see that we have made allowances in the underground parking for provision of uninterrupted power supply, which appears to be the requirements for where the tech industries are going. So this is a long-term view for our client, and we believe that there would be demand, continual demand for high-quality office space, and the site being on a major promenade street in downtown Vancouver, it's a fitting place for this type of an office building, a high-quality office building. So,
thank you so much.
For your consideration.
Thank you. Staff, do you have any closing comments?
Thank you. This is Lika Visser's rezoning planner. We don't have any comments now. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Gonna check with the council. Do you have any questions for staff? If so, put yourself on the queue. Don't see anybody on the queue, so going to make our decision now. Do we have a mover for the recommendation?
Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Hardwick.
Seconded.
Councillor Boyle, thanks so much. And I'll open the queue here for debate. Anybody want to speak?
Point of personal privilege.
Sure, go ahead, Councillor Carr.
Yes, Mayor, there was a few moments where my power went out. I think system overload. So I heard the last speaker, but I don't know if there are any other speakers that I missed, and I would like you to inform me whether I'm eligible to actually vote on this if I miss speakers, and I don't know if I miss speakers.
We did close the speakers list, and we heard a few closing comments by the representative of the applicant, and that's it. So
How many speakers did we hear?
7.
Mayor, it's the clerk. There were 5 speakers.
5.
Okay, Mayor, I did not hear all those speakers as I was attempting to reconnect.
Sorry, Mayor.
Oh.
There was only 2.
So there are 2 speakers.
Okay.
we had 10 on the list, and then we had one speaker that called in that we admitted accidentally, who's for the next item. Did you hear that speaker, Councillor Carr?
I did. I heard the final speaker, but I only heard one speaker. You were calling names, so I don't believe I heard all the speakers, and I just need you to let me know if I'm eligible to vote on this matter.
I will have to check with the clerk. 1 second, please. Sorry, Councillor Carr, could you just remind me of the last speaker that you heard?
Well, I do believe whoever it was appeared to have a Chinese accent, maybe Fu Ting
All
Chan.
right, that's right. Yes. Okay, that's right. He was speaker number 1 that came on, missed his turn, and then came back on. I'll check just to make sure that's the last speaker. I'll check with the clerks. Okay, no, you're good. That was it. That was all the speakers.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great, no problem at all. Okay, I forget. Just checking here, council. Don't see anybody else on the queue, so we can call the vote on this item.
Point of privilege, Mayor Stewart.
Yes, Councillor DeGioia.
My panel is not loading. Could I please have a vote assist?
And how would you like to vote?
In favor, please.
Great, thank you. Councillor Dominato? Councillor Dominato? Gosh, clerks, I don't see Councillor Dominato on the queue.
Mayor, she's on the call, but her video doesn't seem to be enabled.
We're going to have to pause here for a second, council. So we determine what's happening with Councillor Dominato.
Mayor, it's the clerk. She's logged off now, so we're just going to try and contact her.
Thank you. Okay, thanks so much. We'll do that. Thank you, Council. So that was unanimous. Thank you so much for your time on that item. We're going to move to the second item, which is CD1 amendment for 40 Broughton Street. Anybody wish to declare a conflict of interest on this item? No? Okay, thanks. So now we'll hear the application and summary correspondence.
This is an application by Henrik's Partners Architect to amend CD-1 365 Comprehensive Development District to permit an increased maximum floor area and dwelling unit count for social housing in Sub-Area 1, 480 Broughton Street, to allow one extra story to provide further amendments which support these changes and to update parts of the bylaw to current standards. An increase to the maximum height from 30 meters, equivalent of 98.40 feet, to 38.82 meters, equivalent to 127.36 feet, and the total maximum residential floor area from 4,170 square meters to 5,473 square meters are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval. The following correspondence has been received since referral to public hearing and prior to the close of the speakers list and receipt of public comments. 127 pieces of correspondence in support and 219 pieces of correspondence in opposition. This includes one petition with 138 signatures, one petition with 9 signatures, one petition with 3 signatures, and 259 attached email comments, all in opposition. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Thank you for your summary. Okay, Council, if anybody wants to speak to this item, the number is on the live stream and Twitter. We have Lex Dominiak from the Rezoning Center to walk us through the project.
Hi, this is Lex. Just confirming you can see the presentation and hear me.
We can, and I'm just going to check the public stream. There we go. It's just come up now, so we're good to go.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. My name is Lex Dominiak, rezoning planner for this application to amend the CD1 bylaw for 480 Broughton Street. The proposal before you is an amendment to CD1 number 365 to increase the permitted residential floor area, building height, number of social housing units, and to make minor amendments to the CD1 bylaw and the Cole Harbour Official Development Plan to bring each of these documents up to date with respect to current formatting. The primary driver for this amendment is to increase the number of permitted social housing units. It is important to note that the development permit for an 11-story building on this site, which included the additional dwelling units, height, and floor area, were approved by the Development Permit Board on March 22nd of this year. Issuance of the permit with the increased height and density is subject to Council approval of the amended CD1 bylaw, as detailed in this presentation. The subject site is within the Cole Harbour neighbourhood and is situated at the corner of West Hastings and Broughton Street. The immediate context to the east, south, and west are zoned CD1 and have been developed with high-density residential towers up to 37 stories and one 10-story office building. The site is within walking distance of a range of amenities, including the Cole Harbour Community Centre, frequent transit, the seawall and bikeways, childcare providers, and a number of parks. The site is within the catchment area of Lord Roberts Elementary and the Lord Roberts Elementary Annex. The subject site is within CD1 number 365, which contains 2 sub-areas to differentiate the city-owned property at 480 Broughton Street, or Sub-Area 1, and the privately owned residential property at 323 Jervis Street, or Sub-Area 2. Sub-Area 1 contains the Cole Harbour Community Centre, Cole Harbour Park, and a surface parking lot adjacent to Broughton Street. With an area of just over 2,430 square meters, the site of this amendment, indicated by the dashed red line, would primarily cover the existing parking lot. It is adjacent to the Cole Harbour Community Centre and is also bound by Broughton Street to the west, the seawall to the north, and Hastings Street to the south. The proposed building does not displace the Cole Harbour Community Centre or park. The site is within the Cole Harbour Official Development Plan area. Adopted in 1990, the plan provides the framework for the creation of a mixed-use neighborhood, with the city-owned property at 480 Broughton Street serving as a hub for the local community, containing a community center, childcare facilities, and an elementary school. The plan also prescribes one of 3 social housing projects to be located on this site. The other 2 locations have been built out. The Cole Harbour Co-op, located at 588 Cardero Street, and Seaside, located at 1288 West Cordova Street. The official development plan allows for consideration of building heights up to 55 meters for this location. Enacted in 1996, CD1 365 is one of 5 bylaws created to implement the Cole Harbour Official Development Plan and permits a mix of uses, including institutional, recreational, retail, and residential. As mentioned earlier, it contains 2 sub-areas. For sub-area 1, which includes the subject site for this amendment, the bylaw sets a maximum building height of 30 meters, a maximum residential floor area of 4,170 square meters, and a maximum of 40 dwelling units, with each of these units required to be social housing. A preliminary development permit was approved in 1997 for development on sub-area 1. The result was the construction of the Cole Harbour Community Centre, park, and underground parking in Phase 1. The parking lot was left for a future Phase 2 development and was designated to include an elementary school, childcare facility, and social housing. In November of 2020, Council instructed City staff to complete the second phase and directed capital funds to the project. A concurrent development permit application was subsequently submitted for an 11-story building on the site. The application was approved by the Development Permit Board on March 22nd of 2021, subject to conditions including Council's approval of the amendments to the CD1 bylaw addressed in this application. Concurrent processing of the bylaw amendments and the development permit have been undertaken to facilitate an expedited timeline associated with the delivery of the school component, which is tied to BC Hydro's development of a new substation at the Lord Roberts Annex School site. The development intention for this site has also been understood since the preliminary development permit was approved in 1997, and the land use is endorsed in the existing CD1 bylaw. Received on November 27th of 2020, the application proposes to amend the CD1 bylaw to allow an increase in the maximum building height in sub-area 1 by 8.82 meters, or from 30 meters to 38.82. As well, an increase in the residential floor area is proposed by just over 1,300 square meters. And the maximum number of residential units is to be increased by 20, or from 40 to 60 units. The application also proposes minor housekeeping amendments to the CD1 bylaw and the official development plan to update language and diagrams and to correct minor errors uncovered during the application review. It is important to note that the increases to the allowable building height are the result of both physical building changes and to changes to how the city calculates height since the preliminary development permit was approved in 1997. The net result of these changes is an increase in the bylaw height by 8.82 meters. However, relative to the massing approved in 1997, or the red dashed line in the diagram before you, the actual physical building is 4.09 meters higher in elevation. The increase in the building height would accommodate the changes to the way the city measures height, while also providing for one additional floor of social housing units, passive house construction requirements, and raising the ground floor to address current floodplain levels. A city-led virtual open house was held from January 4th to January 11th of this year to garner public feedback on both the concurrent development permit application and this CD1 amendment. Throughout the review process, 2,100 unique visitors viewed the Shape Your City webpage, 817 reviewed multiple documents, and 301 reviewed or submitted comment forms and questions. In total, staff received 377 pieces of feedback on the proposed development. Key themes of support, which were specific to the CD1 amendment, included the provision of affordable housing, the proposals fit with the neighborhood and city policy, and building design. Key themes of concern specific to the proposed CD1 amendment were related to the application the application process, with some suggesting that it was rushed, poorly timed, considering the COVID-19 pandemic, and problematic considering the city is both the landowner and the reviewing body. Others suggested that added density would further exacerbate traffic congestion, safety, parking issues, and environmental impacts. Concerns were also expressed that building social housing in an expensive area would be an inefficient use of public funds, and that the area already provides an adequate level of social housing. We also heard from those who were concerned that the additional height would block views and decrease property values. With respect to concerns related to the application process, typical city review times and processes were followed, and the level of public response via the Shape Your City webpage was significant. Furthermore, projects where 100% of the residential floor area is secured as social housing are processed through an expedited timeline. The Vancouver Charter also allows the city to review and approve its own applications with the support of council, and a separate process when the city is the landowner is not required. With respect to concerns related to traffic congestion, the traffic impacts of the 20 units of housing is expected to be, the 20 additional units of housing is expected to be minimal. The majority of the traffic issues raised by the community were related to the school use, which is not being considered as part of this amendment. However, staff note that the application is meeting the parking bylaw and proposes on-street parking on Hastings and Broughton Street for short-term student pickup and drop-off. Cole Harbour and the West End are also highly walkable neighborhoods, and it is anticipated that a significant portion of residents and students will be accessing the building by sustainable transportation modes. Furthermore, a final traffic assessment and management study is required to be submitted to the city before the development permit will be issued. The plan will include measures to encourage trips by sustainable modes, as well as management of student drop-off and pickup. As with any school in the city, transportation issues are monitored and can be addressed through various measures that the school and city can take. With respect to concerns related to the location and cost of social housing, the original CD1 rezoning for this site, approved in 1996, included social housing as one component of future redevelopment. The uses within this proposal are also in alignment with those set out in the Cole Harbour Official Development Plan. Furthermore, to support a diverse and vibrant city, Vancouver's housing policies support the creation of housing stock to accommodate a broad range of incomes at all life stages across the city. As well, the proposed housing is located in a walkable and transit-accessible location with access to local shopping and amenities. And the benefits of co-locating the housing with a school site and on-site childcare, particularly as the project will achieve 58% family units, may help reduce additional living expenses, such as transportation and childcare. While it is commonly known that land values in Cole Harbour are high, it is important to note that the city acquired 480 Broughton Street in 1996 as part of a comprehensive public benefit package, and for the purpose of locating community facilities and social housing at this site. The cost per square foot is also comparable with recent projects in other areas, and when considering the high level of building performance associated with passive house construction, operating costs are expected to be comparatively low. Finally, with respect to concerns related to height and loss of views, as described earlier, the building height increase is related to building changes, additional social housing units, designing for passive energy performance, floodplain changes, and adjusting the height measurement to align with the city's current methodology. While the city does not regulate the loss of private views, the majority of impacts to these views are the result of the previously approved form of development under the preliminary development permit from 1997. While the effects of these views vary considerably depending on the location and outlook of existing residences, the number of units impacted by the proposed physical building increase of 4.09 meters is approximately 2 floors of each tower. Given the limited number of private units affected by the proposed increase and the overall consistency in the building orientation and position with the design approved in the 1996 rezoning and the 1997 preliminary development permit, which each included guidelines to preserve public views and open space, staff accept the proposed height increase. In summary, staff are supportive of the proposal to amend the CD1 numbers 365 to increase the residential floor area, number of social housing units, and building height. If approved, the application would help meet the objectives of the Cole Harbour Official Development Plan and advances the city's housing goals by providing 20 units of social housing in addition to the 40 permitted within the existing CD1 bylaw. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Staff, the applicant team, and members of the Vancouver School Board are available to answer any questions.
Thanks so much. Wonder if the applicant team is here to speak to the item, or would you just like to answer questions?
Hi, Mayor and Council. I would like to say a couple of words if time allows.
Sure.
Thank you. My name is Danica Djurkovic. I'm Director of Facilities Planning and Development with the City of Vancouver, Real Estate Facilities Management Department. I just wanted to bring a point of a unique and significant public benefit that this project brings together. We have worked very closely in partnership with BC Hydro. They are in a fast track construction of the substation adjacent to Nelson Park, and with partnership with the school board, as well as park board and our housing colleagues and social colleagues on childcare, we managed to make this project possible after 26 years since it was approved as rezoning with community center. This is representing phase 2. We have been faced with 4.8 meters requirement on a floodplain, which original proposal didn't need to satisfy. So this has brought increased resilience to the community. This is giving us opportunity for complete communities so that this neighborhood can have a variety of people accessing public benefits. Affordable housing of 60 units will yield about 160 people homes for 160 people, and childcare of 69 spaces over the life of the building will yield access to 3,000 kids. We hope that Council considers and supports this uniquely amazing opportunity to provide so many public benefits on public land adjacent to the public park and community center. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is the applicant team there to speak to this? Or, sorry, you're speaking for the, gotcha. Okay.
Yes, I was speaking as the owner. We have Henriquez and Partners as our consultants on this project.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. Questions from councilors? Councilor Swanson, up to 5 minutes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just have one question for staff, which is, if council doesn't pass this today, would the project stop? Or would it go ahead, only not be so tall?
Staff team?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Swanson. If the amendment did not proceed, it would proceed under its original DP process.
So we're not talking here about whether the project will proceed. We're talking about whether we'll add a bit to the height.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swanson. Councillor Carr, up to 5.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I'm just wanting to confirm a couple of things. First of all, just an understanding of why there is this perception in the public of this actually being a totally increased height of a much larger number, as opposed to the 13.5 feet that has been described by staff because of recalculation. Is it really just 13.5 feet higher in terms of the building than was already approved.
Thank you, Councillor, for the question. This is Shylon Black from the Urban Design Group. The physical increase in height is 13.4 feet. And the other numbers are the result of technical calculations. But I think it's accurate to say that the roof of the building, if approved as proposed, would rise by 13.4 feet in the air, if that helps.
That does help. I think there's we've received a lot of correspondence as councillors that have cited a much larger number. So and I gather that is due to recalculation. When does that recalculation process occur? Like when were we required to change the way we calculate the actual elevation?
I'm sorry, I don't know the whole history. I do know that at one point the city used a different methodology for calculating the height technically, probably based on a flat plane. Modern height calculations consistently use a sloped plane that reflects the topography underneath the site. And that's the application that's been done here. That is consistent with our current development permits and our rezoning calculations that you would have seen on all other recent applications. The difference between those two things is one of the things that's causing the technical height number to look quite high in relation to the physical change of the building.
Thank you. That's good clarification. You mentioned in the presentation that the actual community plan allows at this site up to 55 meters, that would be 180 feet or so, like 18 or so stories. Why is this building coming under that height?
Thank you for the question. I believe the reason the height is proposed here is it is sufficient to accommodate the social housing that's desired.
Okay, and this particular increase on the application we're considering tonight would increase it by 20 more units of social housing. Did I get that correct?
Yes, Councillor Carr, that's correct. The CD1 amendment would allow for an additional 20 units of social housing.
Okay, that's great. Those are it for my questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kirby-Yung, up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. I was hoping to clarify a couple of points as well, just because there's been such a lot of interest in this project. And first off, with respect to the housing mix, to provide some clarity for the public, can you confirm the total number of units and the fact that the social, sort of the mix of affordability, and the fact that this does meet the city's definition of social housing? So I know the report notes that we'll be looking at up to 30% or potentially greater level of affordability, but I'm wondering if you can just do a quick summary of the total number of units, total number of social, and the anticipated level of affordability, or how that would break out.
Sure, Councillors. Dan Garrison from Housing Policy. So you're right, correct. There will be 60 social housing units if approved this evening or following this public hearing. 35 of those, or 58%, will be suitable for families with children, which is consistent with the notion for this site and the ODP to be a family-oriented site and well associated with the school and childcare center and nearby park. In terms of affordability, at this point, we would be securing it at the base definition of social housing for the city. So a minimum of 30% of the units would be affordable to households with incomes below the housing income limits at a rent geared to income basis. The remaining 70% of the units could be at a low end of market rent. The point with this project, however, is that at this stage, it would be capital funded to get the project built, but the actual depth of affordability beyond that, or the detailed level of affordability, would be determined by council at a subsequent date when the leasing of the project happens following completion.
Okay, but just for sort of the layperson that is not as familiar with the definitions, we are looking at, despite aiming to increase the affordability level, a mix of tenure types where there will be rental and social units below that housing income limits, right?
That's right. This would be what we call a mixed income affordable rental project.
Okay. And another thing that we're hearing about is just concern from people around sort of general density in the neighborhood. And I know that staff made one comment that said the number of people impacted will be approximately 2 floors of on the surrounding buildings. And I wonder if you can expand on that, of what that impact will be on the surrounding buildings and the neighbors.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. It's Shylin Black from Urban Design again. I think the references to the presentation, which noted that the increase in height is roughly equivalent to 2 floors of some of the nearby towers. And it's a great way of conveying that the added height would be of impact to folks on 1 or 2 floors, depending on exactly how tall their floor is in relation to the roof of this building. The folks who are located above the 2 floors that may be affected would look out over the top of this building, and so would not be affected when doing a normal view analysis. Folks located below those 2 floors would have been affected by the building that is already approved in principle for the site. So I think what Lex was conveying quite well in the presentation is the incremental view impact of this building is limited to 2 floors within suites that currently have a view towards the site. So there's a number of suites that would be affected, but relative to the many residents who enjoy views over top of the site, it is limited to 1 or 2 floors per building.
Okay, but as you stated in the original plan, 1990, I believe, that there was always a multi-story building anticipated for this site. That was part of the long-term plan, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dominato, up to 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks for the presentation. Yeah, follow-up questions. Just with respect to the sub-area maximum of 30 meters, did I hear correctly in the presentation that 30-meter maximum was set in order to protect public views, or was it private views from the buildings behind? Can you just clarify that? At the time, the rationale for keeping the maximum of 30 meters?
Thank you for the question. My understanding is at the time of the original design, the 30 meters was effectively the top of the building that was proposed, and the design of the building would have generated that height. To my knowledge, that height of 30 meters was not set primarily to protect private views from nearby residential towers. It reflected the requirements of the design that was proposed for the site.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. And sorry, the sound is breaking up on my end, so I am having a little trouble hearing. My other question is just appreciating, I think, what I heard in the earlier question around our depth being at or below hills. There is a potential that we could end up with more than 30% down the road once we sort of financing and the funding.
Councillor Dominato, I think it's your feed that's cutting in and out a little bit, so perhaps maybe try turning off your video. That might help.
Privilege, Mayor, I'm also experiencing the same, just FYI.
I think it's just with Councillor Dominato's, but I may be wrong, so I'll just keep an eye on it.
I'm gonna, Mayor. Yeah, on a point of privilege, I'm actually gonna log off and come back on, and if I could come back on the queue for I have a couple more questions.
No problem.
Thanks.
I'll put you back on. Thank you. Councillor Dejanova, up to 5 minutes.
Thanks very much. Just a couple of questions myself. I was wondering more so about the childcare, and if staff could elaborate a little bit, because in some of the correspondence that we've gotten, I understand that there's perhaps some misunderstanding or inconsistencies from what the public sees this being and what the report, the policy report, has outlined. So I was just wondering who would be able to access childcare, the childcare noted in the report.
Hi, this is Lex from Rezoning. Thanks for your question, Councillor Dejanova. I'm going to pass it to our childcare staff who are on the line.
Thanks very much.
Hi there again. Sorry, it sounds like childcare is not on the line. Can I pass this to our facilities staff?
Sure, I can try to fill in. Yes, childcare will be accessible to, it's a public childcare, so it's accessible to everyone. Our social colleagues group will work on securing operator through public RFP competitively, and at that point, they are the ones managing wait lists and new kids in the childcare.
Thanks. And two questions to that. Wondering if there was any thought given to considering a nonprofit operator for childcare, and whether or not this would be appropriate for a 24-hour model or extended hour model of childcare.
I'll try to respond as much as I can. I was just told that actually VSOC has been appointed as operator to this childcare, and yes, we typically have non-profits managing these childcares. As far as 24/7, that's outside of my knowledge and competency, so we'll have to respond to you.
Thank you very much. And just another question, considering my time here, is just to be clear, this childcare would not just be open to those people living in the housing units that we're considering right now. It would be for the whole neighborhood. That's correct.
Correct. Correct. This is public childcare, like all other childcares we own and operate by nonprofits. Yes.
Okay, thanks very much. Just wondering, with the family units, if there is, if staff could maybe speak to the need a little bit about what the need for family units at this rate of affordability currently is in this neighborhood.
Michelle.
Hi, this is Lex again from rezoning. There's Michelle from housing. I'll pass it on to her.
Hi, this is Michelle. I'm in PDS housing. There is well, as we know, there's a great need for family housing all over the city. 58% is above what we require under our housing design and technical guidelines. And there are some under construction, but there's a real shortage of 2 and 3 bedrooms in the whole downtown core. And I could actually tell you that as far as market rental goes, there's actually only 93 3-bedroom units in the whole downtown. So there's a shortage of any kind of rental, family housing, and particularly affordable rental
Thanks.
housing.
I'm impressed with the exact number of 93. I would ask more questions on that, but I only had limited time. Another question that I have, and perhaps I'll allow Danica to address this, or to decide who should address this, but when co-locating housing with community centers, often community centers are in parks. This is a specific and unique example. That's how I see it. As a former park board commissioner, is that the case? Is housing co-located with this community center specifically being considered because of the specific location of the Cole Harbour Community Center?
Thank you, Councillor De Genoa. I almost said commissioner. This is not unique. You would remember maybe Kingsway number 1. We have housing co-located with library and community center as well, and childcare. This particular one has been envisioned about 30 years ago when rezoning was done for both phases of community center, park, school, childcare, and housing. I think we are just now, 26 years later, arriving at the phase 2 implementation, which is very exciting. Through our rezoning, we are also going through process of designating parkland right now, so that will be secured for years to come. So it's not quite unique, yes.
Thanks, I'm over time. Thank you.
Councillor Fry, up to 5.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, so I'm curious right off the top. I recognize that we're going to be seeking out maybe senior government opportunities for funding, and I'm just curious if there's anything we can do at the early phase to improve the affordability beyond the sort of minimum contemplated in the social housing definition with 30% hills.
Hi, councillors. Dan Garrison here.
Hi, Dan.
I think at this point, really the funding is in place to construct the project. The decision around affordability will come at the next phase when the financing gets put in place, the lease gets put in place with the nonprofit society. In some ways, similar to the childcare model, where a nonprofit gets selected and through an RFP process, and that's the process through which the final affordability is determined. So that's the typical model. This is in some ways similar to an inclusionary or turnkey housing asset, where the asset is being built and delivered, and the base definition is secured, or base level of affordability is secured, and then the subsequent decision around deploying the asset, entering into the lease with the nonprofit society, is when we typically secure the final level of affordability.
Okay, that's helpful. So what's going to inform the RFP process? What kind of criteria are we setting out for the operator in this case?
Yeah, typically the RFP process includes a range of factors, including the sort of experience and track record of the nonprofit, financial considerations, what assets or resources they're bringing to the table, so the operations plan for the building. So that sort of range of both experience of the operator and how they're proposing to actually run the building. And that has a lot to do with how the final affordability levels are set, because sometimes the nonprofits are able to bring financial assets to the table to contribute as well.
So will there be criteria on the RFP to ensure that this is a family-friendly operator, and that in fact these multi-bedroom units are going to families, not to roommates, for instance, shared housing?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and certainly it is the intent of this project, especially given the co-location with a school, a childcare center, a community center, and a park, that this be very family oriented. And so that's, I think, something that would definitely be part of the consideration in the RFP process.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. So that will inform the RFP process. Great. On to another question. We have heard a lot of concerns from nearby residents about traffic safety, and that there'd be too many cars, and what safety for the children and that kind of thing. Does this project, or could this project, contemplate traffic calming at the Cordova Broughton kind of area there, so that we're really deliberately creating a more safe environment for all road users, especially children?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Fry. I'm going to direct this to Lisa and our transportation staff.
Good evening, councillors. Thank you for your question, Councillor Fry. My name's Lisa Morishita. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, sounds great.
I'm calling from Transportation and Engineering Services. With regards to traffic calming, this application did include a draft transportation management assessment and management study that did an evaluation of the nearby network and did not conclude that any traffic calming was needed.
Okay, so the concerns that have been expressed from the neighborhood around drop-offs and cars and just general anticipating in the future use and context, we feel that as is will be fine?
We do, yeah. One of the wonderful benefits of this school is where it's located. A lot of the residents and families will be attending the school will actually live in the neighborhood, and will be a really convenient walk or bike or transit ride to access the services at the school or at the community center. So we feel that the neighborhood traffic calming that some of the residents have raised as concerns in the neighborhood are actually will be trips made by walking and cycling.
Okay, so but if we needed to, we could certainly implement some kind of traffic calming for peace of mind and safety for pedestrians. That's what I'm getting at, specifically at Hastings and Bradford.
That potential is there, yes. The purpose of the transportation study is to study whether that's required, and using industry best practices from Transportation Association of Canada determined that traffic calming or like a signal at Broughton and Hastings was not required or not warranted at that location.
Great. I wasn't thinking signal, but I'm out of time. I was thinking more speed bumps and that kind of thing. But thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Swanson, you have 4.5 minutes left.
Yeah, I have 3 questions about affordability. Mr. Garrison said, I think that the initial affordability target is 30% at Hills, but that council could increase the affordability by charging a lower lease rate to the operator. Is that correct?
Councillor Dan Garrison from Housing Policy. Yeah, that it is correct that the level of affordability is determined at the time of the lease, and that will be part of it. In this case, I will say it's important to note that council has allocated a significant amount of capital funding to the project, and so there's going to, I think, be a balance at that point around that city investment versus a lease payment to recoup some of that, and that will be the sort of crux of the issue around the level of affordability that gets struck, but that will all be sort of presented to council at the time.
Will we be trying to get any senior government money to increase affordability?
It is a good question. We do typically try to find senior government funding when we can. Again, that will senior government funding is an important part of achieving affordability, but it also does come with strings attached, right, in terms of limitations on flexibility. And so that again, this will ultimately be part of the VAHEF portfolio of projects. And so as VAHEF is looking at its plans and bringing those to council, those kinds of determinations around which sites to put forward for deep affordability and which sites to sort of keep a shallow affordability and have as revenue producing assets and whatnot will be part of that determination, and that's what will be coming back to council subsequently on this site.
And could we put increasing affordability into the RFP process?
Absolutely, we can, and I will say that is typical practice when in the sort of financial and affordability criteria that we put into our RFP process. One of the key determinations and measuring sticks that are involved in those RFP processes is the level of affordability that a nonprofit respondent to those processes can generate by bringing their own resources or securing better financing, etc. So that's typically part of the process.
So here's one councillor that would really love to increase the affordability. Thanks. That's it for me.
Thank you.
Councillor Dominato, 3 minutes.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks. I think I've got a stable connection now. My question earlier about affordability, I think, has been addressed through Mr. Garrison's responses to other questions. But I do want to circle back on the subject of traffic and transportation in the area. A couple of questions. Will we be looking at a formally designated school zone, Broughton and Hastings there? Because this is coming up with a number of our existing schools, particularly ones that are on maybe arterials but are only 2 lanes. And is that a provision that we would be planning to have, is 30 kilometers an hour designation and designated school zone?
Yes. Hi, Council. This is Lon Leclerc, General Manager of Engineering Services. So yes, these are local streets, and so they would get all the treatment that local streets would normally receive around a school zone. And we're also through there in future with our school safety programs to make adjustments as needed as the years go by.
Okay, that's great to hear, and I think I know that there was a question coming, I think, from Councillor Fry about the speed humps, and I know a number of schools that do have those designated school zones do have speed humps on those local streets, and so that I think that may have been where he was going.
That's correct. That's correct. If we observe that speeds were not at the desired speed, we can bring in measures like speed humps to ensure that we get the speed that we're looking for.
Okay, great. And then another question, and I'm not sure if this has come up in the work to date, but it certainly came up when we were looking at around the hydro deal and Lord Roberts and Cole Harbour, was there were families who were asking about the contemplation of some sort of pedestrian overpass around Georgia and Pender because of high traffic volumes. A lot of families are actually coming from the south and will come potentially from the south. And so I'm just curious if that's ever been contemplated.
Again, Lon Leclerc, General Manager of Engineering Services. We generally don't pursue pedestrian overpasses in an urban condition like this, largely because people will tend to not use them. It's a lot of effort to go up and over and then down. And so what we find is much better is if we actually just make intersection improvements to make those crossings safer when people need to cross.
Okay, that's great to hear, and that's being thought about. I think I'll leave my questions there because I think we have quite a number of speakers, but thank you for the answers.
Thank you. That's it for questions from Council. So we're going to move on to hearing from the public. 1-833-353-8610, code 43380# to get on the line. And we do, as mentioned, we do have quite a few speakers. I'm going to start with the first of speaker of 77 that are registered to list here. Council, you know, we may get through the speakers list this evening, perhaps not though, and if we don't, we'd be returning tomorrow evening to hear the remainder of the speakers, and I'll get the clerks to remind us when that the timing on that. Thanks so much. Speaker number 1 is Dr. Saniti Pandey.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello. Hi,
Hi,
I'm Suniti Pandey. Hi. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I am a retired doctor, a resident of Cole Harbour the last few years, looking forward to my retirement here. My position on this is opposition to this project for the following reasons. School for 365 students, daycare and social housing is being planned on a very small piece of land which accommodates about 40 cars altogether if you put them back to back, which has one exit into a cul-de-sac on Broughton Street. Now, the cul-de-sac and the Broughton Street is a very short street, about 4 car lengths, and you are directly onto West Hastings. Oftentimes, I have found that the Lionsgate Bridge overflow traffic comes onto West Pender and West Hastings, and there have been times when it's been difficult for me to get into my own home for about half an hour. So around this plot of land, there are several high-rise buildings, 26 stories and above, and the whole of Broughton Street is lined by these high-rise buildings. And I'm talking about Broughton Street because the school exits into Broughton Street. So that's about 12 or 1,400 families that use Broughton Street to get in and out of their buildings. And so I'm thinking to this will be added the car trips that parents will bring their children. I know one of your speakers has said that they could walk or, you know, it's just the Cole Harbour area. But if the children from the West End are going to come to this area, then they will be either walking or driving to the school. I think walking is on good days. Most days in Vancouver, you know, are mostly raining or snowing. So in those conditions, cars will be the main traffic, and I'm very worried about the congestion. I know that a traffic report has been submitted to the council and has been approved, someone called Bunt and Associates, based on data from 2015, 16, and 19, and with the assumption of zero growth since then. Because of the COVID, they couldn't actually measure the actual, it would give a false data. So I was wondering where do these 900 car trips pick up and drop off? Where will they happen? They're going to clog up the streets in front of where I live and clog up Broughton Street and affect, in a ripple effect, all the traffic that is flowing up to Georgia, on West Pender, through Nicola, and to the Lionsgate, which is a big thoroughfare. So that is my one high concern, is the traffic congestion that will happen immediately. Second is, of course, the loss of views. I live in a building exactly across from this, and I know this is being downplayed as the city has its rights and a city can do what it wants with its land, and it can increase the stories as required, and it only affects a few people. Well, I am one of those few people that are directly affected. So I wanted to know what is the process of decisions that the city makes in harming some people and benefiting some. Definitely 500 people are benefited from the school and daycare and the social housing, and 12 to 1,400 families that are living around here are harmed with the traffic congestion, and possibly, not all of them, some of them, with the loss of view. So I was wondering how the city, which represents all the parties, all the citizens of Vancouver, all the tax-paying, voting citizens of Vancouver? How do you decide whose benefit and whose harm? And if the public hearings, as you are conducting, matter, I was surprised to see, and I was disappointed to see that it went ahead, approval with 99% opposition, or maybe a little bit lower than that. So I was wondering if there is any provision or possibility of finding an alternate site for this, mainly because of the traffic congestion that I can see happening, as well as mainly that is the point, the traffic congestion. I cannot imagine how 1,400 cars plus 900 trips is going to be accommodated here. So I just wanted to know if public hearings and our opinions actually matter in your decision-making process, because we have expressed them sincerely, and I believe that it has not mattered. So I was just wondering if you had any comments or responses to that. Thank you so much. I will yield my time to other speakers who are also very anxious to speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling in this evening. I don't see any questions for me for council. And just as you're the first speaker, it's worth explaining that this is a quasi-judicial decision process, different than a regular council meeting. And so speakers are able to address council with a statement for up to 5 minutes, and then council members can ask questions. However, there is no opportunity under the Vancouver Charter for us to respond to questions. However, what often does happen is that councillors will ask the questions they hear to staff or the applicant, in this case, staff. So that is the process that we're bound by under the Vancouver Charter, but just want to thank you so much for calling in. And I am now going to move to the next speaker. Thank you. We have Larry Keenan, speaker number 2.
One moment, Mayor.
Okay, no problem.
Speaker 2 is just on the line now.
Okay, great.
Speaker 2 is not on the line, Mayor.
Not on the line. Okay, thank you. We'll move to speaker number 4, Carolyn Taylor.
Yes, I'm on the line.
Great, thanks so much. You have up to 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Carolyn Taylor, and I'm a resident of Cole Harbor. It's the Council's job to protect the public and the environment and to make sound decisions using facts, and I know you do that. I have 2 main points to speak about today. First of all, this project needs accurate data, and it needs to be safe. Sadly, it's lacking in both. Issue number 1, the traffic study, which the first speaker already spoke about. A draft was released after the Development Permit Board met and voted. It was not made public until after the vote. Now we've learned it lacks correct data and has to be redone regarding pickup and drop-off spots. You should wait, and the public should have the opportunity to read it and respond. The transportation plan lacks safety for the children and harms the environment. Unlike what Lex and Lisa have just told you, it will require young children in the West End to cross 4 major streets to get to school and back: Robson, Georgia, Alberni, and Pender. It brings more than 900 cars a day into a too small area, where there is also too small of a playground. The staff response was, well, they can use the seawall, or they can go to Stanley Park, which is far too far away for little people. Issue number 2, enrollment. Again, there is not any updated enrollment data post-COVID, and there is no proven need for a new school in this area that was decided over 26 years ago. So your decision should be postponed until at least you have current numbers. Other areas of the city may need a school more now, such as Olympic Village. Again, safety is an issue here. A school and a daycare next to an open marina is a serious accident waiting to happen. No other school in the city is next to an open marina. I own a boat in that marina, and I'm extremely concerned, as are most of the boat owners. If you go ahead with this project, I beg you to require the marina to close their gates an hour before school starts and an hour until after school ends. They may not like that, but you can save young lives. In summary, I ask you to wait and do your job regarding making sound decisions based on facts, which you don't have now. Please do your job to protect and keep safe the citizens and the environment. This plan does neither. This plan was developed over 26 years ago. The world could not have changed more. The proposal is not needed now. There are many viable alternatives that would more greatly benefit the citizens. I'm not against the social housing. I'm against the school and the daycare because I fear for those kids. There's no rush. In fact, the park board won't vote until this fall on the easements under Nelson Park, which has to happen to make this proposal viable. So you can wait. You can get some answers. And by the way, that vote will destroy Nelson Park for years. This is a 26-year-old idea, and it's now an outdated plan. If you can wait 26 years, you can wait a few months more and get it right and do a great deal of good instead of danger and harm. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much. You do have questions from councillors. Councillor DeGenova, up to 5 minutes.
Thanks very much for making the time to speak with us and share your concerns. I'm just wondering if there was any suggestions you had, or if there was amendments or changes to the traffic strategy. I hear that you're concerned about children walking back and forth in the morning. So I'm just wondering if that was managed, as we've seen in other urban areas in Vancouver, if you would be in support of this.
No, the catchment area for the Lord Roberts Annex runs from Burrard to basically Stanley Park. It just makes the most sense to me that the school is eventually in the middle of that catchment area, not on a seawall next to an open marina where the kids and the daycare students can so easily walk down to that water. And I'm so concerned for the safety of the children that I think the placement of the school in this location is wrong. I don't oppose the social housing. That's fine. I just don't think we need a school there. We need the school either where the Lord Roberts Annex currently is, or even better, as part of the Denman area library, community center, and school. That's a more central located location. We need a new community center and library on Denman anyway. Why not? And you've got a large lot of land there. Why not put the school and a new community center and the library in a more centralized location rather than right next to the water?
Thanks. Just to clarify, your only concern isn't regarding the traffic plan and the safety issues. It's also about having the school in a location that better serves the community. So even if this, I just want to clarify, even if this was changed and amended to meet your concerns about safety, you still wouldn't support it. Is that correct?
I very much appreciate your question, Councilwoman. Yes, the traffic is a great concern because, as you will hear from other speakers tonight, there's just no way you can put 900 cars on that intersection and not even have the accurate information yet from your transportation department about drop-off and pickup that's not going to increase carbon emissions and destroy and hurt the environment. So yes, my concern is the traffic as well as the safety of the children. I just don't see that either one can be remedied in this location.
But also to clarify, you would rather see this in a central location because you feel that it would better support the community. That's what I'm hearing. Is that correct or not?
Correct. So much correct. Thank you so much for understanding
Just wanted
me.
to make sure I understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You do have another question, Councillor Dominato. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks for calling in this evening. Councillor Jova definitely reflected what I think I was hearing you say about the location of the school. You mentioned the council not having access to data with respect to school planning, and I was curious if you were aware that, in fact, we do have projected enrollments for Lord Roberts, as well as what will be a rebuilt annex at Nelson Park, as well as the need for Cole Harbour. Were you aware that we do have access to that information?
Yes, and I've requested that information from the Vancouver School Board and the Ministry of Education, and the Minister of Education has not confirmed that they have approved this location. And so I beg of you to update the information that you have post-COVID with the Ministry of Education and the Vancouver School Board, because through the Freedom of Information and other channels, we have not been able to secure updated information, and at least that should be shared with the public before you proceed.
Mm-hmm. I think certainly you can get that information from the VSB in terms of the approval for Cole Harbour, as well as what the projected enrollment is for the area and need. Thanks for calling in this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for questions. Appreciate you calling in. And council, we're going to move to the next speaker. We have speaker number 5, Rick Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor. With my accent, it's pretty clear that I didn't grow up in the West End or Cole Harbour. And I was originally a little reluctant to speak because it's not easy being from America these days, or a few months ago it wasn't easy. But I thought if I told you that Bush brought me, Trump kept me, and that in the school cafeteria of life I chose to sit with the Canadians, maybe the fact that I'd been in Vancouver 18 years would allow me to speak. And I say that a little bit tongue-in-cheek, obviously. Thank you for your service. Being on council is a difficult, often thankless job. But tonight, many of us are going to ask you, slow down. Do something really great for the West End. Now, a few minutes ago, you were told the project would go forward regardless of what you do tonight. With all due respect, that simply isn't true. A group of us made Freedom of Information requests from the city, and we said in November of 2020, you directed staff to go implement agreements between the city, the park board, and the Vancouver School Board for this project. Well, we said we want to see those documents. 2 weeks ago, we were told those documents don't exist, and for us to check back in 6 months. So make no mistake about it. If you either delay, which is what is the prudent thing to do, or you vote no tonight, this project does not necessarily go forward, because you can always rescind the vote you cast in November. So let's be clear about that. Secondly, when you're asking the staff for something, I think you really ought to consider the fact that because you approved this project in November, they're not going to tell you information you don't want to hear. They can't do that. That's the problem with this process. Now let's go on and talk about Vancouver school enrollment. If you go look at the documents, and they were part of the Development Permit Board information, in 2027, and this was pre-COVID when this long-range planning was done, there would be only a 31 student overage for the Lord Roberts Annex. That's in what was presented to you in your documents. So building a new school for 31 students in the wrong location is not necessarily the best thing to do. I, too, don't oppose the entire project. I would rather, if you're going to choose one or the other, you build the social housing. It's the greener option. And I would encourage you to think about this. The most important number you're going to hear tonight is 917. That's what the draft, and the key word is draft, transportation study says will be the additional number of car trips to Hastings and Broughton each day as a result of this project. Now, we heard staff say, well, people will walk or bike. I don't know how many of you have walked a 6-year-old from the location of this school up to past Robson. It's not very easy to do, and you're sure not going to bike it. Now, my view is not affected I want you to know that. I live in my residence. Everything will be okay if this goes forward in that sense, but it's the wrong use of money. Let's talk about something else. Every meeting in the city begins with a reference to it being on unceded land. Yet your own Indigenous Relations manager says you've not consulted with First Nations. And I'm not saying this recently. This was brought up in the March meeting by the attorney, I think his name is Schrag, and others, and there's documents saying, shouldn't you consult with First Nations? Shouldn't you determine, given this is essentially vacant land that's being developed, if there is any archaeological significance to it? Do you have an archaeological update? I don't think you do. Let's look at fairness. Do you really think it's fair to allow citizens to not have access to a transportation study before the Development Permit Board voted? And do you think it's fair that you're going to have a final transportation demand study after you vote, if you vote tonight? That's not how it's done in Canada. That's how Mitch McConnell ran the U.S. Senate. You don't want to be like that. BC Hydro. Has anybody asked BC Hydro what their plans are with Dow Brower? Their plan is for chumps, and I say us, I mean the citizens. They're going to buy the rights at the Lord Roberts Annex on the cheap. Then they're going to sell Dow Brower's site, just like St. Paul's site went for so much, and they're going to develop it. Have any of you questioned BC Hydro? I ask you to do that.
Thanks so much, Speaker.
Now, in summary, go build a new West End community center, library, social housing there. It's centrally located. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. There are no questions for you, but appreciate you phoning in this evening. I'm going to move on to the next speaker. We have Sarah Kian-Parvar up next.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm a resident of 555 Jervis. I'm opposed to this project. I signed up to talk in this hearing with the hope that all of our issues and concerns are taken into consideration, unlike what happened on the March 22nd hearing, where people spoke about their concerns for over 1 hour. However, it appeared that it had already been determined to proceed. Before the meeting being closed, development sign had been installed, which is clear indication that the city would like to proceed with this project no matter what, as the sign would have had to be made well in advance. I have several concerns, like my other neighbors here in Cole Harbour. However, I would like to just touch on a few very obvious issues with this project, and I would like to request the City Council kindly listen to our concerns in good faith and not treat this hearing as just another formality and complete a check mark in the process to proceed with this project. First, I would like to ask the City Council if they have ever walked the streets in the close proximity to this project during the day and have seen the heavy traffic volume along with no free parking spots most of the time. Have you asked yourself what will happen after building this project? How will this development affect the area after adding that many residents and requiring parents to drop off and pick up their kids? Are you aware of how much of disturbance, increased pollution, and inconvenience this is going to cost the residents of this area and people entering and leaving the downtown? At the moment, there is such heavy traffic during the rush hours that some days we are unable to even leave our parkade due to the traffic on Pender, Hastings, Bradon, and Georgia, and other streets exiting downtown. Second, we raised our concerns regarding the proximity of the school to the active marina, and that the students will have to cross quite a few heavy intersections to get to school. Where these concerns addressed and properly planned out, this project location is definitely not the best and safest for young students. Third, the two buildings across the street from this project, 555 Jervis and 588 Broughton, have 382 units And this does not include all other buildings in this neighborhood. How do you justify drastically lowering the quality of life for this many people to build a project for only 60 units that can be accommodated in many other locations in our city and provide more units? How is it fair to residents and taxpayers? Additionally, I would like to point out that this project is not a private project. The city uses taxpayers' money in a democratic society. As such, this project will lower surrounding property values, decreasing taxes that could be used for future development. Residents and taxpayers' opinions should matter, and there should be meaningful consultation with public that they will be directly affected. So the public input from people should actually take into consideration during decision-making process. Thanks for your time and thanks for listening to me.
Thanks so much for calling in. There are no questions for you, so I'm going to move to the next speaker. Thanks. We have Maisie Asfanderari.
Yes, I'm here.
Great,
Can
please
you hear
go
me?
ahead. Yeah, sure can.
Yes,
Up to
hi.
5. Hi there.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mastani Asfandiari. Please excuse my voice. I had my second dose vaccine last night. Before everything else, I want to present my sincere regards to all the healthcare personnel and appreciate their hard work through pandemic. I also want to add my voice to oppose this project. While the other respected speakers are technically analyzing and evaluating the project, I would like to look at the project from a different angle. Let me bring up one simple question. What is the purpose of holding a public hearing meeting? Is it for residents to hear from the city, council, and the developer? To hear about what the city, the developer have already decided and approved without the consent of the residents in the neighborhood? Or the purpose of this public hearing is to give us the opportunity to speak and raise our objections and expect the authority to hear us and then decide accordingly. I just want to elaborate following facts in a few minutes. These days, what we hear in Cole Harbour is hush, hush. Don't talk about school. Don't talk about social housing. These are sensitive subjects. Hush. There is a non-democratic point of view running around the rich, arrogant Cole Harborian old seniors who doesn't want to have other people in Cole Harbour. I am declaring loud that, yes, most of us are seniors in our retirement ages, but certainly not rich and definitely not arrogant. I'm representing 9 other residents in Cole Harbour areas in different buildings, all in our retirement ages. We chose Cole Harbour to live because of its calm and peaceful environment. This project has caused lots of anxiety and worries among people. All of us are strongly opposing this project. This project will ruin the serenity and tranquility of Cole Harbour. We have prepared a petition and submitted to oppose this project within a short notice. We managed to collect 147 signatures of the residents opposing the project. Finally, on a personal note, I want to tell you that I immigrated to Canada 25 years ago. Together with my husband, we raised 2 well-educated daughters. Coming from a third world country, we were happy to live in Canada where everything is established based on democratic values. We honestly never encountered any harm or injustice. Our experience in Canada has so far been based on justice and fairness. This has always been my understanding during all these years, but honestly, after the meeting of March 22nd, I was all in shock and totally disappointed. Dear Mayor and dear Council members, please respect the majority of Cole Harbour residents who are absolutely against and opposed to this project for all the various reasons which the other residents already elaborated or will explain after me. It is very much expected that you hear the Cole Harbour resident voices and cancel this project or change to alternatives which could gain community support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for calling in this evening. I don't see any councillors on the queue to ask you questions, so I'm going to move to the next speaker. Thank you. Council, the next speaker, according to my list, is, one second please, is Morley Green. Speaker number 8, Morley Green.
Mayor, it's the clerk. Speaker number 8 is not on the line.
Thank you, clerk. We're going to move to speaker number 9, Rahim Jivrash.
Yes, hello, Your Honor and council members. Can you hear me okay?
Sure can. Up to 5 minutes, please. Okay,
thank you. You may recall my name is Rahim Jibraj. I attended the last hearing, and by serendipity, I spoke on the proposal regarding the Ismaili Jamaat Khana. And during that proposal, I let you know that I have 2 children, one aged 5 and another aged 2. I've been in Cole Harbour since 2007, downtown since 2002. If I could direct your attention to Appendix C of the package, or the second package of documents, what I propose to do is, in my presentation, is review some communication and do a little bit of analysis with you. So if you don't mind just letting me know when you're at Appendix C, I'll proceed. Titled CHRA President's Message, beginning with an email dated June 9th, 2021.
Sure, I'll just let council flip to that, but if you want to just continue, because you are time limited here to 5 minutes.
Okay, so you can see there that it begins with a message from the CHRA president. That is me. I'm the elected and incumbent president of the Residents Association, representing and advocating for all nearly 10,000 residents in the neighborhood, as well as the numerous stratas that are located there. Now, I want to be clear, the CHRA supports the school and the social housing, but we don't support the application in its current form. Specifically, it relates to the traffic plan and some very serious safety concerns, which you've already heard before. If you were to scroll down to that next page of that email, it says, the city suggests our small, dense area can support 917 additional car trips. And I think you heard Mr. Taylor refer to that. This is a dangerous amount of traffic, given that small children may be crossing the busy arterial Hastings Street. And I had sent the mayor and all of you councillors a direct request seeking to postpone the last hearing, which was ultimately adjourned. But some of those matters are still applicable today. So if you look at 1A, for example, if you're following along, it says the CHRA and others had requested the traffic report well in advance of the Development Permit Board hearings. But we were advised the report was not prepared, and it was not provided to us, and it wasn't available to the public. Then, without notice at the Development Permit Board hearing, the traffic report was referred to, and you've also heard it referred to today by city staff, and I'll make some comments in a moment about that. The notice of the draft publication was then made available to the public by Mr. Freeman, city staff, on June 2nd, well after the Development Permit Board hearing. So there is some significant concern over process and why that was deliberately withheld from us. The CHRA endeavored to do at its own cost was we engaged a traffic engineering company, a professional engineer with traffic expertise, to determine among other things, the adequacy of the draft TAMS report. On those bases, we had asked that the hearing had been postponed. Now, I'm aware that the ombudsman has started an investigation against the city with respect to the process and the deliberate omission of certain materials. I'm now also aware of a filed petition with the Supreme Court of British Columbia, not brought by the CHRA, but a private individual or a company against the city seeking judicial review. That process is extant, it is ongoing, and anything that you decide on here today may in fact be sent for further explanation or another adjudication. Simply put, 917 additional car trips in the area is a dangerous amount of traffic. If you were to take that in half, once for the morning and the other in the afternoon at pickup, let's say that's about 450 cars approximately to the neighborhood. The city takes a position that majority of those people are going to walk to the site. Let's say that's even half, 225 cars. These are kindergarten to grade 3 students. It's not a simple drop-off where you open the door and the child hops out. That parent is going to have to park their car, walk their kid to the Broughton entrance, and that's going to take 3, 5, maybe 8 minutes. Now, the traffic report had contemplated only pickup and drop-off happening on Jervis Street, and that was a major fault in the traffic report, and I'll get to that. Now, they're saying it may happen on Hastings, that needs to be assessed, or it may happen on Broughton. Broughton is a small roundabout street that cannot service that. Hastings only has, I believe, 20 parking spots. If it's 200, 250 cars coming to do drop-off, how is 20 or 25 parking spots adequate to deal with pickup and drop-off? It's not. What you're going to do is you're going to cause gridlock, you're going to decrease livability, and increase concerns as children are going to be rushed to get to school on time. There are some very serious, very obvious safety concerns. If I take you to the next email, still in that same appendix.
You have reached your 5-minute limit.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I thought that I was entitled to 8 because I'm speaking on behalf of the group, and I do have. There are 2 or 3. There are 2 or 3 other members on the call that are.
They would just have to indicate that they're there for us to give you an extra 3.
Sure. It was co-director Alex von Kleist, and I can give you the other gentleman's name, Kyle May.
Okay.
And both are on the phone.
Okay, thank you. I just also a reminder that this is a quasi-judicial process, and we're only supposed to consider the application that's in front of us today, which is not to whether or not we about the school at Cole Harbour. It's about the extra height for childcare and housing. So so that is the rules here. And so I'll just remind you that as you have your extra 3 minutes, is that, again, we're not debating whether or not the school goes ahead. That has been decided. It is whether or not we give the extra height in order to allow the childcare and housing. So you have your extra 3 minutes. Keep that in mind.
Yes, thank you, Your Honourable Mayor. I believe that the issues are related. The increase in density adds additional units, which causes a traffic concern, which adds to that traffic and safety concern. So if I do continue, the CHRA, as you heard, we hired our own traffic engineering company. And what happened then was that engineer contacted the city's traffic engineer at Hunt and Associates, and that engineering firm, the city's engineering firm, has now admitted that the report is being substantively rewritten, that the model that was used to estimate the traffic was incorrect, and that the pickup and drop-off zone was not reflected properly. They were planning on Jervis Street, not Hastings or Browning. So given that it's substantively being rewritten, you don't have a traffic report in front of you that's accurate. The report that was before the Development Permit Board was invalid. That's what I assume will be dealt with potentially a little bit in the judicial review. Now, I told you that I was the elected incumbent for, the 9 to 10,000 residents in the area. The CHRA has probably been party to over 700 emails. I mean, my email over the last several months has just been jammed with people in opposition. And I think you heard today from your own city staff that opposition comments outnumber support comments. You heard that. Now, if the city were to go ahead and approve this based on a false or inaccurate traffic report without proper public consultation, the public never got that report on time, then there are some very serious concerns. I think that I'm asking you on behalf of our entire resident association, on top of all of the community members, please listen to our concerns. We're not against the school. We're not against social housing. There's already 353 units in our area. This needs to be planned better. The traffic needs to be considered. It's a dangerous amount of traffic for the children. It's a dangerous amount of traffic caused by the additional density that the city is seeking. And there's no information to support it. We can't have a proper review until that's all ready. I give my time if there are any questions or comments or concerns. I'm happy to answer them now.
Sure. You do have a couple of questions. Thanks so much, Councillor Hardwick. Up to 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you very much, and thank you for speaking with us this evening. I'd just like to confirm a couple of points from your commentary. To confirm that you do not have any objection to the school or the social housing, correct?
We do not oppose those, no. But what I can tell you, using an analogy, is just because there's French fries on the table, it doesn't mean that you eat them. So maybe the size of this project needs to be reconsidered.
Okay, well, let's just step through this systematically, if you don't mind. Now, so your biggest concern revolves around the traffic study, and you stated that you hired and paid for your own independent traffic engineering study. Is that correct?
That's correct, and that traffic engineer's email is appended to my newsletter. You'll see that his name is Gary League, and the email is dated Wednesday, June 9th. If you'd like, I can just quickly take you through what his process was and what his professional opinion was. May I do that?
I don't know if I'll have enough time. I'd just like to continue asking my questions, and if there is time remaining on, I'll ask you for more detail. Do you have, as a result of this, an alternative plan? What do you suggest? Is there a solution other than the criticisms that you'd levy? Do you have a solution, or has your traffic engineer offered any kind of alternative approaches?
Yes, thank you for the question. We don't have enough information. The traffic engineer doesn't have enough information to provide solutions. You see, his review was thwarted because he was informed that the draft report was going to be rewritten. So we can't review something that's going to be rewritten. I tend to think that the solution here would be to share some of the data, to share an updated final report, and allow us to look through it. Maybe it's the city sticking to the 40 units instead of 60. Maybe it's a discussion on an even smaller project. I don't know. But there is a solution. We just don't have the information to propose something.
Okay, so then, what you're trying to say to council is that basing decisions on incomplete information, and we should not be making decisions until we have sufficient information.
Yes, that's one of my positions, correct.
Okay, I understand that very clearly. I'm not sure if I have any time left. Are we at 3 minutes, Mayor?
No, you have 2 more minutes if you like.
Okay, so if you'd like to elaborate, as you suggested on the traffic study, please do.
Yes, yes. So Gary Vlieg is the professional engineer, the traffic expert that we hired with a company called CTS Engineering. And he states in his email that CTS corresponded with the study author, Bunton Associates, in 3 emails. 1, to advise of the peer review for the guidelines. 2, to ask if there were substantive changes impending that could affect the peer review. And 3, to ask questions to provide CTS clarification on specific technical points as a result of the initial review of the report. The Bunt response to the final email has made it very clear to me that the draft report is so substantively to be rewritten that any formal peer review of the current draft would be wasted effort. The 2 most salient points from the Bunt email are: the vehicle trip assignment to the road network does not account for pickup drop-off areas proposed in the report. The school trips were assigned to the Jervis Street entrance. In other words, the draft TAM study does not address the congestion that could be anticipated with the Broughton and West Hastings pickup drop-off areas. 2, the non-auto modal share used in the report is to be changed based on recent surveys. My advice to you is that the CHRA and the council should focus on the lack of an accurate traffic report for the public to review. In my opinion, and this is the professional engineer's opinion, the council should not be making any decisions regarding the proposed development, nor should there be a public hearing until that time that a viable traffic report has been published with sufficient time for the public to review and comment on it. Skip ahead, in my professional opinion, based on the information provided by Bunton Associates, the current traffic report is not fit for purpose. As such, we're stopping work on the peer review. So you can see it's a very critical, objective statement by the engineer, our engineer.
Thank you so much. You do have a question from Councillor Kirby-Young as well. Councillor Kirby-Young, go ahead, up to 5 minutes.
And thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Raheem, I'm having a little trouble with my connection tonight. It's cutting in and out a little bit. Can you just clarify for me which documents you're referring to? I'm trying to identify them as you were speaking. Can you clarify?
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you, Councillor. It's labeled Appendix C, and I think it's in the second package of comments. Yeah. So you'll see there's 2 emails, both with subject CHRA President's message.
So this is a submission that you sent in on behalf of the Residents Association?
Correct. Yeah, there were 2 submissions. That's correct.
Okay. I'm having trouble identifying. I'm trying to find it. Can I ask you to email that again to Mayor and Council? We all need to receive it just so it's top of the inbox. That would be really helpful.
Yes, Councillor, I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. That's it for questions. So I'm going to move on to the next speaker. Again, thanks so much for participating. We have, just so council knows, the clerks will make sure they email us around so all councillors receive a copy of the document that was discussed there. So it'll be around shortly. Council, we have speaker number 10, Sina Mahabadi.
Mayor, speaker 10 is not on the line.
Okay, thank you so much, clerks. We have speaker 11, Dalaram Kayam.
Yes, hello.
Hi there. You have up to 5 minutes
Hello.
whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Dalaram, and like many other people in this neighborhood, I want to add my voice and strongly object to this project because it has many problems, including a drastic increase in traffic load, pollution, noise, and the loss of one of the last panoramic views in Vancouver. And if you are a real Vancouverite, you would not want to lose that in any way. In an area where the fabric of its surrounding has already been shaped by the past few decades, any major decision-making or change must absolutely include neighborhood consensus. In the past several years, this area has witnessed an increase in population and traffic load, and development of this building will bring about 1,000 more people to this area every day, and it will aggravate the conditions during and after construction because of the severe traffic load, vehicle emissions, pollution, noise, and dust in a residential area that is already quite busy. The current population density of Cole Harbour and downtown Vancouver is more than 3 times that of the city of Vancouver and more than 18 times the population density in the Metro Vancouver area. This should make all of us very concerned about overpopulation and overdevelopment in Cole Harbour and downtown areas. About the draft traffic report, it seems that it downplays the impact of traffic to justify the project. Despite all this, the report could not eventually escape the fact and specifically states that there will be an estimated 917 new vehicle trips each day to Hastings and Broughton area. And at the same time, the report continues to say, and I quote, adding more trips by vehicles is no longer manageable on a finite road network, and refers to this as a significant challenge, which definitely is an understatement. This traffic load in this already busy area will lead to unbearable traffic, road congestions, and more emissions. And this, as you know, violates the city's climate emergency plan, which aims at reducing carbon emissions. Also in 2018, BC Hydro and Vancouver School Board made a deal for use of Nelson Park to plan a substation at the cost to our neighborhood without even informing us and without our participation in consultation meetings. Had the consultation meetings included the Cole Harbour residents, there would have been many more people disagreeing with the proposal right at the beginning. Review of BC Hydro's available reports has so far raised many questions and doubts about conflict of interest and whether they ever conducted a comprehensive feasibility studies and need assessment and any site selection studies, as well as the need for relocation of annex schools. This proposal, as BC Hydro had previously said, is a way to save them from having to buy and take up expensive downtown estates that could be used for other purposes. Considering BC Hydro's financial capability and their net income of $705 million last year alone, surely they are capable of finding other options for relocating their substation if it is absolutely needed, instead of destroying the park and the annex school and eventually imposing it upon this neighborhood. So far, the main response provided by the city and the beneficiaries about this project is reference to the master plan dating back more than 20 years ago in the last century, insisting that it must still be considered valid and be accepted more than 20 years later. This line of argument is not reasonable. We need to check our facts on a continuous basis, especially after 20 years. The truth of the matter is that this project was not realized at that time, and since then hundreds of people have moved to this area and invested their lifelong savings to live here. Had this vision been implemented 20 years ago, surely many of the residents currently living here would have not chosen this location as their place of residency. In fact, some of the existing buildings did not exist back when this project was first envisioned. Please keep in mind that many residents in this neighborhood are senior members of our society who have dedicated and contributed to our society their whole life in significant ways, and they have chosen their neighborhood for its quiet and peace. This project will immensely disrupt these characteristics during and after construction, and such adverse impacts that I mentioned can in no way be justified, compensated, or mitigated. A sudden rush to push this project forward without community consensus is not acceptable. The development of this building of such magnitude in this tiny lot with very limited road network is not practical. This is one of the main waterfronts belonging to our city, to the entire city and all people. Cole Harbour's waterfront, as one of Vancouver's main tourist attractions, presents its visitors with a unique, tranquil, and serene atmosphere, and that is something to be preserved and savored. Considering the many aspects that I have mentioned, I'm asking you to fully reconsider the decision and not to approve this project. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much. There are no questions for you, but appreciate you phoning in this evening. And I'm going to move to the next speaker. Council, next speaker is Jeremy Schrag. Speaker number 12, Jeremy Schrag.
Mayor, it's the clerk. Speaker 12 is not on the line.
Thank you, clerks. Speaker number 13 is Mitra Davarpana.
Davarpana, I'm here.
Thank you very much. Up to 5 minutes whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mitra Davarpana. I would like to restate what other people have said against the construction of this building. I also want to strongly oppose this project. 15 years ago, as soon as I saw the view and the peace and quiet of this area, I realized this small apartment is where I would like to live for the rest of my life. Furthermore, I have to tell you that I'm suffering from asthma and need fresh air. Also, recently, I have been diagnosed with MS, and my neurologist has told me that I need to live in a quiet area with minimum noise and no agitation. As you know, building this project will increase traffic, pollution, noise, and dust during construction. And afterward, it will cause additional heavy traffic, which will lead to extra pollution and noise. All these will worsen my health condition. Considering Vancouver is prone to cumulative pollution caused by vehicles and more frequent and intense wildfires, we have to be more vigilant not to add extra emissions and pollutions by adding more traffic loads and congestion in the neighborhood that will affect the health of many people. I'm sure there are many people with similar concerns who would want to oppose this project, but because you are rushing the approval process for some unknown and doubtful reasons, they have not had the chance to be adequately informed about this project and its consequences. This is especially true during the pandemic period when a lot of people are away and cannot travel back to oppose this project and participate in collective decision making. That's, of course, if you believe in collecting wisdom and collecting decision making. In the last public hearing, I heard nearly 90% of the people strongly oppose this project, but you ignored this opposition as if it was just a sham and as if the public consultation was organized only for cosmetic purpose. This time I hope you listen and oppose this project yourself. I appeal to your good sense of justice just for a moment. Imagine you are living in one of these buildings in this neighborhood and then tell me how you would feel and how you would decide. I must also tell you, over 26 years ago, I moved to Canada, which is supposed to be a democratic and transparent country. But believe me, generally people can immediately sense and recognize decisions that are undemocratic and lack transparency, especially when it is being rushed like this. Considering you are elected by the people, this will of the people, this will of the people must matter and be respected, and such great opposition must affect the final outcome, especially when the matter is so contentious. Finally, please consider that Pearl Harbor is also a tourist area, and if you turn this small parking lot into a green space with planting trees and some flowers, it would attract more visitors. This could be an alternative which will gain large community support. Therefore, I would suggest please do not take decisions that we would all regret. Thank you for your time and listening to me. I count on your support to protect our rights and oppose this project yourself. Thank you all.
Thank you for calling in this evening. There are no questions from councillors for you, and again, sorry to hear about your medical difficulties. Council, we're moving on to speaker number 14. Actually, Council, we're at 8:35. I thought I usually give a break at 8 o'clock. I've kind of blown by that. So let's take 10 minutes and come back at 8:45. And we'll see you in 10 minutes. Thanks. Everybody a second to get situated. Next on the list is speaker number 14, Maureen Baird.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can. Up to 5 minutes, please, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. My husband and I have owned a condominium at 499 Broughton Street. Sorry about the dog. So we're part of the community that this decision directly impacts. I'm a lawyer with 37 plus years of experience dealing in advising quasi-judicial makers in their decision making. And I only tell you that to give some context to the comments that I'm going to make. David, can you turn this off? Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm just getting somebody to turn the video feed off.
Sure.
In the short few minutes that I have, 5 minutes I have, I want to make 2 points. The first has to do with your responsibility in light of the conflict you have in making a decision in effectively what is your own case. And on this point, I'm going to urge you to do 2 things. The first is to decline to make a decision until a full and transparent hearing can occur, or failing that, to respect and enforce the bylaw that the city made to protect this community and upon which members of the community have relied. And I also am going to raise issues of the adverse effect on the livability in this community. So I'm going to start with the issue about your responsibility. In normal circumstances, the City of Vancouver Council would not be able to sit in judgment on its own application to change the law because it would be in a hopeless conflict of interest. The legislation, the Vancouver Charter, has given the city the rare and extraordinary privilege and authority to make decisions in its own case. But this comes with responsibilities to ensure the fairness and objectivity of its decision-making. The legal authority says that you must come to this process with an open mind, not already having made your decision. You must recognize that the existing bylaw is there to protect the community. It should only be altered if it is absolutely necessary to do so. There must be, in the materials before Council, evidence that the increase in height and density that you are considering to grant yourself is necessary, not simply desirable to the city. In other words, there must be proof of why the city as applicant cannot comply with the law. The application materials, including the referral report, do not provide any such evidence. In particular, there's no evidence that the city ever tried to design a project that fit within the existing law. There's no reason why this project cannot be built within the present bylaw upon which people have relied in making life decisions for the past 20 years. And you've heard these people speak. And I'm assuming that you've read the letters, and this is what people are telling you. There's no evidence supporting the need or justification for the additional density, which has led to the additional height. The fact is that it would be simple enough for the city to comply with the law it made. It can decrease the number of housing units by 20, which will bring it into full compliance and will also solve the need for additional height and floor area. And I remind you that the 40 units was to be a maximum under the current bylaw. The city materials state that building social housing at this location is at the same cost as elsewhere. That's based on a report that I asked for, but was not provided to me. So there's no construction savings to be achieved by building here. In the absence of evidence that the project has to be overbuilt, it is not enough for the city to say, well, we can change the law, and we want to because we now prefer additional social housing over the promise we made to the community and upon which it has relied. And if that requires extra height and density, then so be it. Nor is it enough to say more social housing in Vancouver is necessary, and so we'll override the wishes of the community and the commitment we made to it. The referral report does not say that the viability of the project requires 20 extra units, and it certainly provides no such evidence. And I also say you should be questioning the other facts before you. You should be questioning why you only have a 2019 school report, which has an earlier person said, had a requirement for 30 more students in 2027, building up from now until 2027. And so, yes, you have access to numbers, but those numbers aren't supporting the extra density and height that you're looking for. Lastly, I say it's wrong for the city to repeat, well, we're delivering what we promised on 20 years ago, because this project does not deliver on that promise. It exceeds the commitment that the city made to the community by 50% in terms of social housing units, 30% in terms of height and floor area. And I heard a comment or a question.
We are at the 5 minutes, so I just wanted to thank you so much. We've got a 5-minute limit for each speaker. And so I just wanted to thank you so much for your time this evening. There are no other speakers on the list, councillors on the list to ask you questions. So I am going to move to the next speaker, but thank you for participating tonight. Council, we're moving on to speaker 15, who is David Lunny.
Yes, can everyone hear me?
We sure can. You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'll try and be brief. Good evening, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I tried to make my concerns to the Development Permit Board, but I wasn't able to get on. And this is a follow-through almost, because the errors in the Development Permit Board I don't want to have repeated now in this hearing. The message I want to make is the same as I would have said to the Development Permit Board. What's the hurry? What's the rush? Why don't we wait until all of the necessary reports and information are completed before approving a development permit application or a bylaw amendment to accommodate that application? And I think it's important to bear in mind that the City of Vancouver tells developers what they have to provide when they apply for a development permit. And one of the most important requirements is the provision of what we've called a TAMS report, short for Transportation Assessment and Management Report. And that's crucial to the determination of whether the subject site and its surrounding infrastructure can reasonably and safely support the proposed project without unreasonable detriment to the livability and the safety of the surrounding community. City Council wouldn't dream of even holding a public hearing, let alone approving a bylaw amendment to accommodate a developer who had failed beforehand to furnish a TAMS report that accurately reflected the anticipated transportation network operations. A developer would have to satisfy the city, based on a full and complete adequate traffic study, that the well-founded fears and concerns of the community members, real people whose interests the city is also bound to represent and uphold, were unfounded. The city, of course, ought not to be able to dispense with this necessary precondition by virtue of being both the applicant and the approving body. But that's what the council is that's what the Development Permit Board did, and what the council is in effect being asked to do tonight. Because the necessary TAMS report, which would be required of a developer, does not exist. We never saw anything in the hearing before the Development Permit Board. What we have now, and even Lisa Morishita referred to it as a draft TAMS report, that's all we have. But according to our expert, the CHRA expert, by the firm's own admission, it has to be rewritten based on different criteria and new data. It's unfit for its purpose. So the Development Permit Board and this council should not be approving anything until we're satisfied that the bridge can bear the weight that is proposed to be sent over it. That's it in a nutshell. Now, I'm just going to give you an example because it's one that's very important from the other speakers. There's congestion. There's traffic buildup. that's fine. But the most important one that I would refer to is the requirement by the city in a TAMS report that the TAMS report evaluate potential operation and safety concerns at intersections on road segments or driveways that will be created or affected by the site-generated traffic during any or all of the relevant periods and scenarios. I mean, there cannot be a more important consideration on a school site. Guess what? This TAMS report doesn't mention any of those things. Nothing about pedestrian and cycling conflicts, nothing about the vulnerable road users, the children, nothing about access points for non-vehicular modes, nothing about vehicle-pedestrian, vehicle-cyclist conflicts, nothing about weaving, merging, diverging, corner clearances, site distances, access conflicts. I'm not making these headings up. These are headings that are found in the city's own prerequisites. And as I say, no such evaluations appear in the Bunt report relied upon by the city.
Thank you so much, sir. You've hit your 5-minute limit on this.
I guess that's it. So if you've fed up listening to me, I'll concede the rest of my points are hopefully going to be made by other speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for calling in this evening. Council, I've just been speaking with the clerks, and just so folks know that we do have 70 speakers signed up to speak to this item, plus, of course, the open section at the end of the meeting, close to the end, where people can phone in and speak when we open that section up. So it's doubtful that speakers that are late on the list will get a chance to be heard tonight, since we will be stopping at 10 o'clock. We have about an hour left. So I'll do my best to call the numbers and let people know, but I would think if you're over speaker 50, it'll be difficult for you to get in this evening, and we'll be reconvening to hear the remainder of speakers tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. At this point, I'll call speaker number 16, Sally Chai.
Good evening. Thanks, Mayor and Council, for this opportunity. I'm a 2-decade resident of this very neighborhood. I've justified the ongoing building-associated disruptions, including dust and noise, towards the end goal of improving our local services to make this a sustainable, safe, healthy, and integrated community. This current level of increased infrastructure has really brought along with it unregulated, unenforced threats to the local residents' health and safety. In addition to the escalating thoroughfare and local traffic at all hours of the day. I'm not just speaking about West Georgia Street, now West Hastings, West Pender, and West Cordova. They've all become arteries of sorts. People are shortcutting just to get to the traffic or beat the next guy in line for the Lionsgate Bridge at all hours of the day. We're constantly being bombarded by non-directional sirens on top of it that are required by first service responders to service local residents, but they're non-directional. They blast it in every direction and wake all of us up whenever they need to ring, as well as loud engine and loud muffler sounds from motorbikes, service delivery vehicles, which is very much necessary, especially during the pandemic. I'm not arguing against that, but they're not serviced properly in terms of mechanics and decibel level. Personal cars of high output caliber, as well as less well-maintained older cars, because people can't afford to buy brand new cars or electric vehicles, as we all like to do, in order to pay our bills. In addition to these routine fleet disruptions and the threat of premature hearing loss, honestly, the residents are now at a heightened risk of developing fossil fuel-related hematologic cancers, ischemic heart diseases, and lung diseases. Never mind the individual level harm, I plead you to please consider the responsibility to consider these science-based big picture harms that will negatively impact our healthcare system. That's already bursting at the seams. I know because I'm in it. This development would further add to this area's already unhealthy footprint. I would really like to hear the Planning Committee's study on the projected impact of thus increased ambient noise, and that of petroleum pollution on human health. We've also seen a rise in petty crimes, loitering, and unstable pedestrian behaviors of late. We will be risking the safety of the young school children as they and their guardians navigate these car drop-offs, car pickups, or even walking to school or cycling, if you will, around a very narrow intersection that isn't designed to accommodate that burden of traffic and congestion. At the same time, by having this project of magnitude built in that little site, we will be exposing children and the underhoused who we're trying to help to a destabilizing streetscape. I remain keen to hear the net benefit of this proposal to everyone involved, including the school children, all residents. Also, let's not forget the working taxpayers who require and deserve a healthy, restorative home environment in order to work and support our system. In closing, I've yet to be convinced that this is really an appropriate site for the project for the scope. I support a pared-down elementary school that is in keeping with the traffic, ambient noise, and congestion that is expected with the original plan if the constant and exponential rise in our neighborhood's ambient noise, dust, and fossil fuel pollution is simultaneously addressed. Please, please be responsible and consider these pockets of impact as a whole to help us holistically as a community. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for calling in this evening. I don't see any councillors with questions, so I'll move on to the next speaker. Speaker number 17 is Norman Chow. And again, just a reminder to speakers waiting on the line, we are finishing in about an hour. And if you want to speak to this item and we don't make it to you this evening, you're welcome to phone back in tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Norman Chow, speaker number 17.
Hi, I'm here. Honorable Mayor and Council, my name is Norman Chow, and I'm an owner-resident of Cole Harbour for over 10 years. I'm here to voice my opposition to this amendment and the related development plans at 480 Broughton Street. The public consultation process is very important and appreciated by me. Respectfully, as elected officials, I believe you want to ensure that City of Vancouver development process be transparent, based on current data, and be inclusive, not dismissive of facts that affect all residents and the children that are or will be living in Cole Harbour and adjacent communities. Decisions and timetables need to be reached after careful consideration of all current facts and studies, as well as relevant input by residents living in the affected areas. This proposed amendment is the result of the decision made at the March 22nd meeting, which I believe was based on inaccurate and incomplete information and did not fully consider all the views of Cole Harbour residents who are directly affected by this decision. My critical concerns are a significantly high child safety risk and a significantly increased traffic congestion in Cole Harbour that impacts all residents, users, and visitors here. These are the facts that I understand. One, no in-depth review on children's safety. The proximity of the marina and waterfront and the major streets required to be navigated with the increased traffic all add up to a greater potential sources of danger and liability involving children. Who will answer to the parents of the children that are harmed, knowing that these factors existed and this development proceeded? Two, no traffic assessment and management study. The draft reports, which was presented and used in the March 22nd hearing, was proven to be inaccurate and incomplete. It did not address the added volume of up to 900 car trips per day that would result with this proposal. If you have driven in this area, you will know that there are no alternative traffic routes, as the seawall and waterfront is adjacent to the proposed development site. How can one reasonably make critical and far-reaching decisions without a complete and accurate traffic report? Three, lack of consultation from Cole Harbour residents in two areas. Firstly, not all Cole Harbour public input was considered or taken seriously at the March 22nd hearing, as reflected in the hearing notes published and the omission from publishing of some crucial comments. Why were we not all heard at the March 22nd hearing? Secondly, Cole Harbour residents were not aware of nor invited to the 2018-19 public hearing on the annex school in the BC.
Speaker, I just want to interrupt you there for a second. So, as I explained to previous participants in this This is a quasi-judicial hearing where we have pretty strict guidelines laid out in the Vancouver Charter. And so what we're evaluating tonight is the additional height to this project, the already approved school. So I need you to limit your comments to the additional height we need for the childcare and housing portion of this. So not to really re-prosecute the case from the previous approval, but to really focus on the extra height that would accommodate the social housing and the childcare. Thank you.
I guess, Mr. Mayor, that's where they are related because one is getting approved because of the other. And so I've tied that together. So
yeah, you could just if you could stick to the second part, that would be great.
Okay, well, I guess I'll summarize. There are 5 areas of major concern I have is the safety of the children, which is the added volume by the increased number of units and height. Incomplete and inaccurate transfer station assessment and management study, which is, again, will be exacerbated by the increased number of units and height. And the violation of the city's own climate emergency response plan, which will be the result of increased units and height. Lack of consultation and input from Cole Harbour residents. And finally, outdated studies and lack of current data for plans reflecting the needs and impacts to the Cole Harbour community. I urge you, Mayor and Council, to pause and allow for updated information to be presented so you can base your decision on accurate, relevant data regarding the development proposal. This project should not proceed at all. Thank you for your time and consideration on my comments.
Thank you for your comments this evening. I see no questions for you from council, so I'm going to move to the next speaker. And the next speaker is, one second, please. Next speaker is 18, Petty Wong.
Mayor, speaker 18 is not on the line.
Thank you very much. We have David Scott, speaker number 19. David Scott, speaker number 19.
Speaker 19 is on the line, Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you. David Scott.
Speaker, you may be double muted. Please check your phone to see if you've muted yourself.
Mayor, speaker 19 is now disconnected.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to speaker number 20, Jamie Bearns.
Mayor, speaker 20 is not on the line.
Okay, thank you. Speaker number 29 is Amir Balur.
Mayor, speaker number 21 is not on the line.
Okay, thank you. Speaker number 22 is Richard Wu.
Speaker 22 is on the line.
Thank you. Richard Wu, up to 5 minutes, please.
Mayor, speaker 22 has disconnected.
Okay, thank you so much. We have Harry Zhu, speaker number 23.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Up to 5 minutes whenever you're ready, please.
Hi. So, dear Mayor and councilors, I oppose this project. I'm a downtown resident and also work in the real estate data and cost firm who serve for the public sector, the property owners, and private developers. And also as a proud millennial Vancouverite, I like the idea of a greener and more affordable city. However, a school and social housing is not for this location because of great traffic, children safety concerns, and overall has a diminishing impact for a significant budget. So we live in an area where we make decisions based on data. And I'd like to reiterate that we don't have the data to support a school and social housing at this location, let alone an increased height. In fact, there are many flaws from the traffic report. The traffic report indicated a 0% increase of traffic trend assumption from 2016 till 2025, which makes the whole entire traffic study report invalid. Also, there is no school zone location, which will be an issue for this particular location, because you can't have an arterial road such as West Pender, Broughton, or Georgia being the school zone where you have a 30 kilometers per hour on a 24/7 basis. And also the drop-off zone is also a foreseeable issue, creating a backlog of traffic and car idling, which the current applicant is ignoring. In addition, with this budget, we can build like double or more the amount of social housing somewhere else. I know we have an ambitious goal to reduce the amount to build a super green building, but creating a huge influx of traffic here is contradictory. So, in summary, I strongly oppose this project, and as you can hear from previous speakers, the public has spoken, and I hope what happens today will not be like what has happened during the board meeting in March of this year. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, councilors and mayor.
Thank you so much. I don't see any questions for you, so I'm going to move to the next speaker. We have Dennis Chan, speaker number 24.
Can you hear me okay?
Sure can, up to 5 minutes.
Great, thanks. Mayor Kennedy, councilors, and also to the staff that have spent a ton of time, I'm sure, preparing this. Thank you for your service. I appreciate the opportunity, and I really appreciate your considering our concerns based on the questions that some of you have asked already. This does give me a better feeling than what I had at the March 22nd committee meeting, which several people have already commented similarly on. Firstly, I'm not against an elementary school or the type of social housing proposed. I actually welcome it. After all, there's 2 social housing high-rises within just a few hundred feet of this place, and there's no problems with them. I've certainly not encountered any. But it's important to improve projects that fit the location, the neighborhood, and the natural surroundings. And my concerns stem from this because I do not believe that this proposal in its current form fits properly the surroundings. When I first heard about this project, I actually thought it was a good idea. But then one of my neighbors asked me to walk the land parcel with her, plan in hand. And I actually changed my mind. And here's what I want to share with you. I want to share what you cannot see from the report. And if you have time, if this thing gets delayed and you don't approve it today, I encourage you to do the same thing I did. Walk the parcel with plan in hand. Hopefully you'll see what's beyond the reports. So some staff have said that there can be short-term parking for pickup and drop-off on Broughton Street for the school. This particular block of Broughton Street next to the new building is so narrow that it is against bylaws to not only park, but to even stop, not on one side, but on both sides of the street. That's how narrow it is. Not the entire street, but half of it. The other half is the cul-de-sac, and I'm sure you can imagine what a pickup and drop-off zone with a cul-de-sac would look like. Probably pretty messy. Now, a typical street in Vancouver, my understanding for this type of street, is actually almost twice as wide as this particular street. It's so narrow that it is about 10.9 meters curb to curb in the non-cul-de-sac section. In another part near the intersection, it's actually only 6.5 meters wide. So I concede that probably could be widened a bit there. But let's take that 10.9 meters. It is that narrow. So when city staff advise you that there can be short-term parking for pickup and drop-off, I really encourage you to take a very critical lens. I also think that, because it is so narrow, this new building will not be set back much if you look at the plan behind the sidewalk. So you've got 2 buildings that are very close together. I find it hard to believe that a private developer would have been able to get approval for this tall of a high-rise for such an ultra-narrow street. Another point is the park is entirely is almost entirely surrounded by high rises and gets very little natural sunlight because of that. The new building will be built right up to the edge of the park, so it will lose much of whatever little sunlight it already gets, especially in the fall and winter months. This park is not big. It's not like George Wainburn Park or David Land Park in Yaletown. It's not like Creekside Park in Falls Creek, where the buildings are much farther away, and also where you have a much larger park. So as a city that cares about parks, and this park is pretty well used, that is taking away a lot of the sunlight, whatever is left, given that it is already surrounded by buildings very close to it. I also want to just mention that it's important to characterize things in an accurate way. I know some of the urban design folks earlier said that this height increase only affects 1 or 2 floors. That is actually not entirely true. It's a bit misleading, although I certainly know they don't intend that. They're basically saying only those floors that are at the same height as that increase will be affected. Well, that's like saying that if somebody stands in front of you and their height only comes up to your nose, then it really doesn't affect what you see in front of you and your perception and your perspective. That's obviously not true if somebody stands right up to you and they actually come up to your nose, below your eyes. So I just encourage you again, take a very critical eye to what you are seeing in the reports and what you're hearing. Because until you walk the parcel with plan in hand, it's difficult to know. I don't want to just complain without a practical solution. So I know you can't really set back farther because the land parcel is already very narrow. I believe the practical solution is to reduce the height by removing either some of the floors or reducing the higher than usual heights for the lower floors. Again, as per the staff presentation, they did increase the height beyond what was originally expected, and the CD1 was amended. So I just encourage you to really think about that practical solution that I'm offering. Please challenge the staff to produce a better solution. I mean it as a genuine compliment when I say that I believe they can do that. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. I don't see any questions for you, so we're going to move to the next speaker. Let's see. Councilor with speaker number 25, Cash Palladian. Cash Palladian.
Mayor, it's the clerk. Speaker 25 is not on the line.
Thanks so much. Speaker number 26, Jesse Dillon.
Mayor, it's the clerk. Speaker number 26 is not on the line.
Okay, thanks. We're on to speaker number 29, Sanjay Maharaj.
Mayor, speaker 29 is not on the line.
Thank you. Speaker 30, Dylan Graydon. Sorry, speaker.
Hello?
Hi, is this Dylan Graydon?
Yeah, this is, yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. Please go ahead, up to 5 minutes.
Hi, thank you. My name is Dylan. I am a professional engineer specializing in engineering, consulting, and construction, and I oppose the development and the amendment. It is not necessary to proceed or expand a project that will decrease the livability of the area with a plan established in the 90s. The demographic in the area has changed in the past 15 to 20 years. Typically, young families are moving away from the downtown core. As such, there are less kids to attend school, which was previously stated as a surplus of 31 by other callers. Additionally, as other callers have pointed out, this particular area is very unsafe for school children due to traffic and the active marina. All projects require budgets and schedules to be approved by the major stakeholders and can be changed or canceled if the construction's feasibility and or costs have considerably changed or increased. Since the 90s and most recently with COVID-19, there has created a huge spike in material costs, and additional material shortages are prevalent across all materials, which have increased in lead times and are extending construction schedules, which will make development costs much higher. For example, lumber has more than doubled, rebar has doubled, structural steel has basically doubled from $550 US per ton to $1,000 US per ton, and copper prices are at an all-time high, and we are currently seeing 16 to 28 week lead times on standard wire sizes that you will use for your construction. There have been a few councillors that have already expressed concerns and importance that the costs are keep affordable for the renters. Construction costs are highest downtown. Additionally, the contractors have to transport materials, concrete, and waste the furthest distance out of any location in the Lower Mainland. Additionally, where construction workers, material suppliers, and deliveries like cranes, concrete trucks, etc., to park during this development without impeding everyone in the area, as well as people traveling to and from the downtown area for work and use the area recreationally. One councillor this evening suggested that only 2 floors from the surrounding buildings would be affected and that upper floors would not, views would not be affected. As the caller previous to me had pointed out, this is an incorrect statement, as additional units on the higher floors would also lose their views of the seawall, the marina, and the areas directly in front of the building based on each floor's viewing angle of these areas. So that being said, if you're conservatively 5 buildings with as little as 4 or 5 units affected on these 2 floors each, this would affect the same, if not more, families than you're providing benefits for. Social housing and school areas can be built in less expensive areas, which would enable the construction to accommodate more people at less cost. The money from this development could provide much more affordable housing in other parts of Vancouver or the Lower Mainland. Additionally, taxable income is generated from property developments. This property will have lower taxes, which also, means less money going towards keeping the downtown and city clean, safe, fire workers, police officers, all of these benefits that our tax money goes towards. And also the tax revenue generated for parks, recreation, community centers, and future developments such as this. The whole process can be done better and provide more units in the alternate locations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for calling in tonight. There are no questions for you, so thanks again, and we'll move on to the next speaker. We have speaker 31, Lucy Maloney.
Can you hear me?
Sure can. Up to 5
Hello?
minutes, please. Hi there. We can hear you.
Thanks.
Up to 5 minutes.
I'm speaking in favour of the rezoning. I'm the Vice Chair of the Lord Roberts PAC, which represents parents of the 3rd largest school in Vancouver, and we would like this rezoning to be approved and for the school to be built as soon as possible. Downtown also needs more housing, especially affordable housing. I've spoken to a number of families from our school who are worried about how expensive rent is and how difficult it is for families to find a place to live at all downtown. Downtown needs the Cole Harbour School. There's a wait list for kinder at every downtown elementary school, and this causes a lot of stress for parents. Childcare places downtown are extremely hard to find and have long wait lists. Families are missing out on places at the schools that are within walking distance of their homes, causing them to spend extra time and money every day travelling out of catchment, and this school would relieve some of that pressure temporarily. My kids' school, Lord Roberts in the West End, will have a record 650 students next year with 5 kindergarten classes. Most families walk, ride or roll to school, including many families from Cole Harbour. Some speakers have said that they're concerned about traffic congestion. This development is exactly what the City of Vancouver and the VSB should be doing to reduce car traffic. Build housing close to jobs and amenities and build schools close to where children live. When this school is built, Cole Harbour families will be able to walk to school, taking cars off the roads. This rezoning will give older children the chance to walk to school independently without having to cross Georgia or be driven to school by parents. This is especially helpful for parents who need to get to work or start work before drop-off time. I'd discourage the City of Vancouver from allowing car pick-up and drop-off on Broughton Street. The students at this school are likely to live within walking, riding and rolling distance from the school. This section of Broughton Street is very short and should be reserved for safe active transport and to give extra space for families and students congregating outside the school. The benefit of reserving roads adjacent to schools for people instead of cars has recently been demonstrated by the overwhelmingly successful School Streets pilot, in which one block of one street adjacent to 3 Vancouver schools was closed at drop-off and pick-up times to give more space for families walking, riding and rolling to school and for parents waiting for their kids. We saw significant traffic evaporation at our school and the other schools during the pilot as more people chose active modes. A separated bike lane on West Hastings would travel straight past the top of the new Cole Harbour Elementary School, the community centre and the residential tower, and would have give a significant encouragement for people to use active transport instead of a car. A lot of downtown families don't own a car. A number of the Cole Harbour families at Lord Roberts walk, ride and roll to school at Lord Roberts and Lord Roberts Annex. They already cross Georgia, Alberni, Robson and Nelson Streets. Cole Harbour kids are already going to elementary schools. This development would mean that they will be going to school close to home instead of on the North Shore, downtown and elsewhere. This is the perfect place for a school. Kids will be able to access after-school care and activities at the Cole Harbour Community Centre, and that will be particularly helpful for working parents who can't get to 3 o'clock pickup. I wholeheartedly encourage the City of Vancouver to approve this school as soon as possible. It is desperately needed. Thank you.
Thank you. You do have a number of questions from councillors. Councillor Boyle, you've got up to 5 minutes.
Yes, thanks so much. I was going to ask both about the need for the school space and about the school streets program, so appreciate you speaking to those. I'm wondering, as a parent downtown, if you have any other advice for this particular site and location about what could be done to address transportation concerns, particularly in as you spoke to, in making it easier for families to walk, ride, and roll to get to the new school location?
I think that some car parking spots need to be reserved, especially for Spark Pass holders, so accessible car parking spots as near as possible to the entrance to the school. That's super important. But the main thing is to have separated bike paths and wide, generously proportioned spaces for congregation and spaces for people to walk to school, because really most people will be able to walk to school. And the downtown parents that are coming with their families once the annex is demolished, they'll be coming to the Cole Harbour School, but all of those people are not going to be driving cars. Most of the people that live downtown either don't have cars or perhaps one of the parents drives to a workplace that's not downtown. So the main thing, the important issue for traffic reduction and traffic evaporation is car-free zones adjacent to the school. I'm sorry, did I answer all your questions?
Yes, that's all very helpful. My other question is just as you may have heard, there's been some concern about the location so close to a marina and the water, and I wondered too, as a parent downtown, if you have anything to add from your own experience about that.
Well, I think that from viewing the site, it's obvious that there needs to be some safety modifications made to the park so that the fences aren't low. And I noticed that there are already glass panels to stop kids from climbing on the horizontal wires. But I think those are manageable. Kids are already playing in that park. The park is designed for very young children, the play equipment. So it's already being managed by parents. So I know that the Elsie Roy playground is is not fenced and is near the water, and they seem to manage all right there. I think that it's a beautiful place for the school because kids deserve a lovely environment. There are heaps of trees there to provide shade on hot summer days. It's a really great place, and I'm sure that the park board will be budgeting for and planning for improvements to the playground so that it's ready by the time the school's operational.
Okay, really appreciate that. Thanks for phoning in.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Councillor Carr, you're up next for questions up to 5 minutes.
Yeah, thanks so much for phoning in very much. As you know, I did visit the school, your school, during the pilot project. So I'm interested in knowing, this is in the Safe School Streets pilot project that just completed a month ago or so. What percentage of students, families basically, come to school via non-cars, like they walk,
Yeah.
roll, ride?
So at our school, which has is the downtown catchment area, over 75% of families, I understand, already use active modes to get to school. And during the School Streets pilot, where one block of Comox Street was closed at pick-up and drop-off times, but all the other streets around the school remained open, we saw an astonishing reduction in car traffic around the school. We were helped by good weather, but we really couldn't understand where the cars were going. We were worried that there would be increased traffic on Pendrell Street, which runs parallel to Comox Street and Bidwell Street, but it was astonishing. I think it put in people's minds that it is convenient and pleasant to walk to school, and also I think some people were dropping a couple of blocks from school because the intersections were safer with the street closed, and I also think that some parents were prompted to, with their older children, to either let them ride to school by themselves for the first time or walk to school by themselves for the first time. So it gave parents of older children a lot more freedom not to supervise their trip to school, and that's really what we want for our kids. We want our kids to be able to walk to school unsupervised. And in a dense inner urban neighbourhood with lots of eyes on the kids and lots of foot traffic, it's the perfect place to have kids walking to school.
Right. Indeed. In terms of the after the project ends, sort of follow up and follow through, are you anticipating that there may be advice that could be gained from that pilot project that could be could help inform, for example, a basically very, very high walk, roll, bike to school set of sort of not just a program, but the actual physical design around the school that could help facilitate that for happening for the vast majority of students and families?
I think the most important thing, apart from having separated bike lanes and wide footpaths, I think having safe intersections so that they're not as wide and they have longer crossing times, and that the corners are not curved to allow cars to speed around the corners, so that the cars are required to slow down, speed bumps, raised crosswalks. All those things can make intersections around schools a lot safer, and I really wish that every school in Vancouver had safe intersections in the blocks surrounding them, and at least one street adjacent to the school with a separated bike lane for kids that want to ride to school.
Great, good. That's good information. I'm sure staff are taking notes about this, and that you're passing it on as a consequence of the pilot project. You did at the beginning of your presentation to council talk about that it would be safe to cross Georgia. Can you describe what you envision that safe crossing being?
I know that there's a big project to put bike lanes and safer crossings on Georgia and generally revamp it. I think I'd like to see longer crossing times, not just for kids, elementary school age children, but also for old people or disabled people that have trouble crossing within the very short time. I think that we have to put the needs of pedestrians ahead of the convenience of drivers. I know that the traffic engineers are very clever and they can find good ways of suiting everyone, but we really need longer crossing times on Georgia.
Right. Thank you so much. And really appreciate the work that you're doing on the PAC.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor, more questions from Councillor Fry, up to 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for joining us. And I think my colleagues have sort of addressed a number of these sort of concerns, but I'm curious, what if you had any thoughts to share with many folks who are speaking about traffic concerns and safety of children, and what the role of parent advisory committees plays in ensuring that kids and students are safe going to school, and how you might assuage some of those concerns that we're hearing from some of the neighbors.
Well, I think you've got a real opportunity with this school to design it right from the start. I mean, things like having Broughton and West Hastings with separated bike paths on them and wide footpaths would certainly save the future pack of the Cole Harbour Elementary School a heap of work that we're doing in trying to retrofit that at our school. I think that I really think that the residents who are concerned about traffic need to understand that we're going to have a net reduction in car traffic and pollution as a result of this school being up and operational. The more schools we have within walking distance of children's homes in Vancouver, the less car traffic there is. When I lived in Santiago, Chile, regularly the government would shut down schools because of pollution levels, and it would cause an enormous reduction in car traffic, enough to reduce the pollution to safe levels. And you see in every school in Vancouver car traffic, and as I said, the more schools we have within walking distance, the fewer cars we have on the road. So if you don't like sitting in your car at peak hour in traffic jams, more schools is a really good way of reducing traffic in Vancouver.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I know that in particular, Lord Roberts Annex is in a pretty complicated park with Nelson Park, and there's lots of uses, and there's an off leash there, and there's a variety of sort of quote unquote safety issues for kids and their parents to worry about. How does the PAC manage those kind of concerns, and how might some of those approaches manifest in some of the concerns we heard and Councillor Boyle alluded to with the marina there and those kind of things, and the seawall and the cyclists and those kind of concerns?
Well, first of all, I just have to clarify that I'm on the PAC of Lord Roberts Elementary, not the annex, although I do have quite a bit to do with issues to do with the annex, because, of course, once the annex is demolished and the kids are going to the Cole Harbour School, we've got all sorts of issues about, encouraging the VSB to have Cole Harbour kids able to transfer to the Cole Harbour School, and West End kids able to transfer to Lord Roberts, so that we have as little as possible traffic or travel away from people's actual homes. But one of the things that we've been hearing for years as the Lord Roberts PAC from parents is that their main concern is traffic safety. So the more we can have good intersections that are safe and controlling car speeds and protected bike lanes, the better, because we're not just talking about confident adult cyclists, we're talking about families that are trying to ride with elementary school age children to school. My family, for example, we live in the Elsie Roy catchment, but we couldn't get a place there because it's not big enough. So we ride along Beach Avenue to Lord Roberts Elementary. So I can take my elementary school age children by bike because of the excellent infrastructure that the City of Vancouver has put in. parents of elementary school age children are not going to ride bikes unless you have protected infrastructure. You know, staff will be encouraged to ride bikes to school, to work, and the residents of the new tower will be encouraged to ride bikes for transport if there is safe infrastructure, and that will do more to reduce traffic around this school than anything else, and should reassure the residents.
Thank you so much. That's the end of the 5 minutes for Councillor Fry, but we have Councillor Dominato 5 minutes for you for questions.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks for calling in this evening. I was the liaison to Lord Roberts and the annex as well. And I'm curious, you've made some really great suggestions around infrastructure, and I know our staff will take note of that, but I'm curious if you have some perspective on signage as well, because one of the things that I've heard that's come up with Crosstown Elementary and a few other schools where it's sort of modern schools, they don't look like schools to people. So I'm talking about vehicle traffic, people who maybe not be going to the school, but just traveling through the neighborhood and not being aware that there's a school there. And do you have any thoughts on the importance of signage?
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes, when I started driving in Vancouver, I found the signage for pedestrian crossings a little bit indistinct. I think that the main thing that you can do is put visual cues like raised crosswalks as often as possible in intersections around schools. I mean, there are people that have got much more expertise than me at how to make things obvious to drivers, but definitely bump outs, like less distance between the crossings of streets at intersections, and raised crosswalks are really good visual cues, particularly because if you've got a crosswalk that's the same level as the sidewalk, it's like cars are having to come into the pedestrian space instead of when you've got the street at the same level and the pedestrian space raised, it's the pedestrians are visually coming into the realm of cars. So, yeah, there are people with much more expertise than me in these matters, but I think if you make the pedestrian crossings the same level as the sidewalk, that's a good start.
Great. Thanks for that input, and thanks for calling in this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's it for questions. Appreciate you calling in tonight. Council, we're just at 9:42 by my clock, so maybe a bit of time for a couple more speakers. Speaker number 32 is Ellen Dewar.
Mayor, it's the clerk. Speaker 32 is not on the line.
Thank you. How about speaker number 33, Domino Al Young?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Mayor and council members. I've been a Cole Harbour resident since 1996, seeing Cole Harbour develop from the raw land to the current livable community. I'm honored to be here tonight, but I realized that looking at the documents and listening to the meetings tonight, it seems that lots of current facts have not considered. Say, for example, the current social housing unit in Cole Harbour and the current traffic problem at Lord Robert Elementary School that will be brought over to 480 Broughton. How narrow the road around the 480 Broughton, and how busy Georgia Street rush hours always are, and then how much narrower the road will be, even if it's Georgia or maybe anywhere close to the 480 site with bike lanes, as Speaker 31 suggests, it's only make the road condition even worse. It is easy to say, but it's I don't think it's practical to implement. We have enough bike lanes. Okay, currently existing built and has been occupied social housing in Cole Harbour is 353 units in total. They stretch from Jervis to Cadero, namely 1288 West Cordova, 1515 West Hastings, and 58 Cadero. 1515 West Hastings and 58 Cadero, they are for family with children, and they are all within the 3 blocks of Cole Harbour community. Broughton is between Jervis and Cardero. So if 480 Broughton is approved, there will be a total of 413 social housing in total with the same 3 blocks in Cole Harbour community. And 2 out of 4 social housing buildings in the Cole Harbour community will be over 10-story high, namely 480 Broughton, 11-story with 60 units, and 1288 West Cordova, currently 30 stories with 284 units. For Cole Harbour, there's 8 blocks stretching from Barat to Denman. My question is, why all of the social housing, if 480 Broughton is approved, why all have to be in the same 3 blocks in the Cole Harbour community? My concern for traffic and carbon emission nightmare is very valid indeed. Easy enough for even kindergarten kids to come to terms for a high traffic building to be built within the same 3 blocks of the community, especially the lot in consideration for 80 Broughton is tiny, so tiny that at this point is only able to accommodate 40 compact to medium-sized car. If it's fully parked, there's hardly any car would be able to drive through it. And then it is only accessible from a tight and next to a dead-end cul-de-sac. So vehicles or maybe even walking traffic can only be accessible from only one junction, which is the West Hastings and Broughton. And it is going to be a nightmare in the making, as my kids have told me. It is tomorrow's heat wave, very probable, likely that is even worse than what we are currently experiencing at home, that we are all fighting for here. And here, that's the reason why that with the thought that it's going to cause a lot of traffic problem and likely increase carbon emission, that's why that we are all here to speak our mind. We all live and love the city, hence this project resulting in high traffic, air pollution, and more carbon emission is all against our principles and should not even be contemplated in the first place. At this point, we are in such hot weather that even my friend from Europe is telling me that they've seen such news. And hence, we are now going through stress in our busy schedule during pandemic to show up to fight for our causes. So, and this is the reason why that we are here to ask Council to really reconsider the fact and look at the report and see how the things that you guys say it can be done is really going to work out. My question is, in 1996, when the project at 480 Broughton was contemplated, I'd like to know if at that time, if 1288 West Cordova, 1515 West Hastings, and 58 Cardero, which are already built and occupied now, even contemplated at that time. Because with the 60 unit to be built in 480 Broughton, there will be a total of 413 social housing units within the same 3 blocks, namely Jervis to Cardero in Cole Harbour community.
Thank you,
and
Speaker.
City Council members.
That is the 5 minutes this evening. Thank you so much for your presentation. And there are no questions for you, so thanks very much, and we'll move on to the next speaker. Speaker 34, Benny Lee is next.
I'm here.
Hi, please go ahead up to 5 minutes.
I live in front of the proposed project. Based on council, don't ask questions of those who oppose the project, like the Development Permit Board. Council too don't care about our objections, that you are letting us go through the due process, that you are only considering whether to approve the extra height. I submit to you, you have the fiduciary duty to re-prosecute the original plan approved 25 years ago, because the city has been failing to erect an outdoor sign on the property, warning people of the impending project throughout the past 25 years. Plus that the original approved building permit should have been expired if the project did not commence within the 2 years from the original approved date. Just like in litigation, there is a litigation law that dictates the time frame one can file a lawsuit. Had we known of this project, we would not have bought our condo. or we would have not paid as much. 99% of the buyers did not know about such dormant project approved 25 years ago, which led us to pay more for the unobstructed view. Consequently, the city has been overcharging us on our property taxes. So based on this valid point, I submit to you the original plan should be canceled. The developers should reapply for a new building permit. Then you can say we would be properly consulted and we will be fairly heard, and then you have fulfilled your fiduciary duty to protect us. Thank you.
Thank you for calling in this evening. I don't see any questions, so Council, maybe we'll go for one more speaker. Speaker number 35, Kembiz.
Mayor, is the clerk? Speaker 35 is not on the line.
Okay, how about 36, Kevin Kavakib?
Mayor, Speaker 36 is not on the line.
Thank you. How about 37, Trevor Ho?
He is on the line.
Great. Speaker 40, Greg.
Good evening, Council.
Yep, please go ahead whenever you're ready.
All right, good evening, Council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. So I've lived in this neighborhood just on the steps, or just steps from the Cole Harbour Community Center for close to 15 years now, and 5 of those as a homeowner. I'm a young millennial professional. I don't have kids, nor do I plan to. However, I do support this development proposal and the amendment that's before Council tonight. We elected this Council to approve and not to delay the much-needed expansion of social housing in the city. I do support adding a school and affordable housing to Cole Harbour because I do value mixed and diverse communities. The school is a much-needed community fixture here that will add vibrancy and energy to the area and contribute to a more complete community. I am concerned that Vancouver is losing young families to more affordable places. These mid-career workers are necessary for building and retaining talent in the city, yet these people are taking flight to other jurisdictions. We do need more families, and families need 2 to 3 bedroom apartments. It makes me really happy to see that more than half of the homes slated for this development will be 2 to 3 bedroom units, and I would encourage Council to expand that if at all possible. Having read and heard my neighbors' comments, I'm frankly a bit disappointed at how predictable and self-serving a lot of the opposition is. Obstructed views, increased noise and traffic, irrational fears about mixed income neighborhoods, increasing crime. None of that really holds up, in my opinion. For those people concerned about their views, respectfully, this is downtown Vancouver. Growth and density are part of the deal you make living here. The increased height, that's the crux of the amendment before Council tonight, is a key part of the passive house standards and various other climate and emissions related considerations that are key considerations for Council and many of the plans in place for addressing the climate emergency. As for noise, again, I just have to point out that this is downtown. This isn't a remote part of the region where you go for quiet. And again, with construction, I realize that's a pain, but it's a part of urban life that we'd all do well to adapt to. I do think those concerns about traffic are overblown as well. This area is very well served by transit, and the neighborhood is exceptionally walkable. The majority of the kids attending the school will live nearby, so I don't think that it's going to be a huge issue. On the subject of safety, I do think a lot of the concerns about children walking off the marina or into traffic are just a smokescreen for those who would rather keep this neighborhood exclusive. I'm particularly disappointed by the written submissions, in particular that express fears that adding low-income people would make the neighborhood less safe somehow. To me, that only reveals elitism. And yeah, from what I gather, this development has been in the works for about 25 years and has been studied ad nauseum. Adding a school and affordable housing to this area are a net benefit, and I would welcome more of these kind of things in my neighborhood. The area in question itself is severely underutilized, and adding these amenities to the neighborhood would certainly enhance our community. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You do have questions. Councillor Dejanova, up to 5 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thanks very much, and thanks for making the time to wait and share your comments with us in your presentation. I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
sort of speaking, as you had identified yourself, correct me if I'm wrong, as a person from a generation, I too am a millennial, that feels that families or younger people are being sort of pushed out of Vancouver because of affordability. Do you think that uh, when we're considering social housing and co-locating that to childcare and other amenities that maybe make like a living room type of setting for people who might not be able to afford so much private living space and they have to share common living space, do you think that that's really important in trying to retain uh, families and younger people, millennials and other generations in Vancouver?
Well, I would certainly welcome more sort of community and communal spaces that can be shared and used for special events and things like that. But for me, the bigger issue is the affordability concerns. And, you know, it's compounded when you have children. It makes your life much more expensive. So the idea that we could help more people live in this neighborhood and start families and build their careers without having to worry about their childcare is so positive, and I would really welcome that in this neighborhood in particular, because I don't think we have enough of that, and especially not at the kind of price point that would be available to a lot of people who are of our generation.
Thanks. Just another question for you, if you don't mind. You don't have to answer it,
Yeah.
but some of the concerns we've heard tonight, I'm not sure if you've heard them about co-locating the marina and this specific proposal and application, and sort of a more urban center with more traffic. Hearing the concerns about that, do you think that there are ways to make that work, or do you think that is something?
Well, my expectation again is that the majority of people using this school and the childcare would not be driving here, just because it's for the community and people could walk or bike or take a bus pretty easily, as we are well served by all types of alternative modes of transportation. As for the marina, I don't see kids wandering off and like jumping off the pier or anything like that. I think some people are really underestimating young people and their decision making.
I have a 3-year-old. I don't think she'd do that, but I don't know. So I'll leave it there. Thanks very much to you for staying, and thanks, Mayor, for indulging my question.
Thanks very much, Council. We have come by my clock to 9:57, so that's not enough time to afford the next speaker a full 5 minutes. So we will recess for the evening, and we'll reconvene tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. So could I have a motion to that effect to recess?
So moved, Councillor Dejanova.
Thank you. We have a speaker. Thank you, Councillor. I'll just check with the clerks. Is there anything else we need to do?
Nope, that's all, Mayor.
Great. Thanks very much, everybody. All in favor of recessing, say yay.
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 Opposed, nay. Great. Thanks so much, Council. We'll see you tomorrow evening. Good night. Thanks, Clerk.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, staff.
Thank you.